Guys, I'm Mike.
I'm Tim.
And I'm Jeff.
Yes.
And this is the Board Game Rundown, and we are live in two of our basements because we cover games from the ground up. Welcome, everybody. It is Whiskey Wednesday. How we doing?
I am happy to be here, man. I am excited.
Hi, Mike and Tim. I'm happy to be here as well.
Pleasure to have you, Jeff. We're going to have some fun tonight. We're going to say hi to everybody that's with us as usual. We got Trevor in the chat from the other side of the world.
Thanks, Chris.
A resident troll is in the house. We have another local Jasmine with us. David's with us, who joined us on our Friendsgiving. We got Nixon here, who we're actually trying to schedule a role-playing game with, aka Dungeons and Dragons. Interestingly enough, that kind of segues into our topic. But yeah, Nix actually is one of our regular viewers that we're trying to schedule a virtual D&D game with. And we're potentially going to film that and put that out. So we're going to see how that goes. We got David, who is with us for Friendsgiving. We got Mike Giuliano, who's always with us in spirit, no matter what.
That is true. That is true.
So guys, say hi to Jeff. Jeff is you're actually reading your kind of profile. You're not just a designer, you're a little bit of everything, man.
Me? No.
Yeah.
He's an ass kicker, man. You read that stuff. Don't pick a fight with Jeff. Don't pick a fight with Jeff.
With 0 products on the market. I get 0 points.
No, I met Jeff at Origins. He was sort of like one aisle over with his Weather Vane Games booth, starting to show off that previews of Vrahode. I'm not going to try to butcher it by explaining what your game is, Jeff, but please take a second, tell everybody what Vrahode is and what it's all about.
Well, Vrahode, the word that doesn't exactly roll off your tongue, it is essentially like saying Earth. Vrahode is the world that it's a fresh fantasy world. So everything happens within there. And all the products we're developing are basically kind of a 3-legged stool. We allow you to adventure across the lands, and it feels kind of adventure-like in the gameplay. It has a stool leg that is essentially ocean exploration. It allows you to adventure in the oceans and fight these big kind of Kraken-type beasts. And then, of course, we have a very robust Underlands facet to our game. That's the 3rd leg of the stool. And so all the products that we're making are based around the world of Vrahode and have those 3 legs.
And then that's a campaign style.
Yeah, you can play campaign mode, but you can also play all the way down to procedural if you just prefer more of kind of a Diablo-esque gear grind where you can get in for 30 minutes and have fun and get out.
Yeah,
and everything in between. So there's 6 modes of play and 4 difficulties that you can choose from in the world of Vrahode. So it's got a lot of appeal to a lot of different types of gamers.
I will say, you guys, this summer, you guys put out you had a video, like a little Vrahode, like, I don't know, hype video. I'm gonna call it a hype video.
Yeah.
And that like teaser trailer that you guys made was awesome. That was awesome.
David Diaz gets all the credit for that.
Oh, yeah, that was David. Yes.
Yeah, David's work is always good. Mesa Game Lab. And so all the credit goes to David for that. The only thing I did do that I take a little pride in is I did pick the song for it. The song is called Oh Death. And it's by a guy named Bobby Bass. And it's a pretty cool song.
That whole trailer rocks, dude. And I will say, you got to take like this much more credit because you did design the game that it was highlighting. Yeah. And if that game was junk, it wouldn't look near as cool.
Yeah, the minis show well in that video.
Yeah, they do. They do. It looked good, man. It got me excited and then sad immediately that I had to wait like a year for the crowdfunding to even start.
Oh yeah.
But you've got this bad boy coming to crowdfunding eventually, right? When are you planning on doing that?
We've got an entry product that's going to be affordable. It comes out October 2024. So what? Less than 10 months now.
Yeah.
and it's going to be a sub 100 product. It's going to let you experience most of the mechanics of our world, of our system. And, the heroes from Age of Prophecy, which is the first product, are going to port right on into Kalteran Ascension, which is the big core box for the 4-game series. And so it's going to be, this one's going to be campaign driven because, you can only offer so many modes of play in something affordable. Right. So we think this is like kind of a Jaws of the Lion type product, but much more immersive quickly. It gets you into the world. It gets you into the mechanics. So we're really excited about it. We've got Lenny Scheider, who is the cartographer that did all the maps for Darkest Dungeon, which Mythic did and stubbed their toe on, but the art was amazing. And now he's working for us. So
that's awesome, man.
Nice.
That is, once I met you, I started kind of digging down into the, going into the Vrahode rabbit hole, and it's just like, just layer after layer of very cool stuff. I think that the system sounds really cool. I would love to have a campaign. I'm just going to say it, a campaign style game that does not have necessarily the overhead that like a Gloomhaven does,
Yeah, oh yeah.
And, but I can get in, because that's one of the things that I really like about like the Descent games and stuff. I can get in pretty quick. There's still some setup, and that's fine, but it doesn't feel fiddly. Your game looks really, looks pretty tight. You know what I mean? And again, you're stepping into this whole world, but the world feels lived in. I mean, from the art that you've created, and just reading about, like, just going through your website, right, and like checking out all the stuff that you got for it. Like, if I know you say it's 32 years in the making, but like, it feels like it,
Yeah, it started in 1990, so it's been around a while, kind of distilling,
But it feels like it, and that's
Ooh, who was this? Right
yeah,
there.
I don't know.
Yeah, Facebook user. Announce yourself. Sorry,
Jeff,
we
that's
don't
not
know
your
who you
lady,
are.
is it? Jeff bring a ringer into the chat, so you
my wife is downstairs watching TV. I can confirm that it is not my logistics manager.
So, Tim, you kind of got us there. I want to get us all the way there. I would like
Let's
to
do
know
it.
how this universe got started in 1990.
Well, I mean, I've been a gamer my whole life, since I was a little kid, and Fat Eric around the corner. I mean, everybody's got a Fat Eric around the corner. Would invite me over to play D&D, and I didn't get to play the blue cover one, the blue cardstock cover one. I got to play the yellow one, which was advanced, the first AD&D, and that kind of got me started. And then all the way through to college, I was this kind of voracious reader, and I loved fantasy books. And I just kind of got tired of the tropes, that everything being stamped by Gary Gygax or Tolkien, everything being about dragons and trolls and undead and devils and demons. So I set out in my head, based on a lot of the classes I was taking in school, to kind of recreate what a fresh fantasy world could be. And I loved this idea of like 3 old kind of jaded geezers that know everything about fantasy sitting around a table, and none of them being experts, everybody kind of starting over.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I mean, I remember that first time when Eric would say, "Hey, you see a kobold," and you're like, "Cool, what is that?"
Right.
Is it dangerous? Is it my friend? And so it kind of lets you restart and experience that childlike wonder that a fantasy world should invoke. That's the joy of fantasy, is the unknown, and there's no unknown left in most of the games out there nowadays.
Right. I mean, everybody can. I see. This is one of the things I hated about, playing D&D outside of the group that I played with. Okay, so the group that I played with, my buddy had most of the books. We'd go out and get a few things, right? Like, I'm running a bard. I'm gonna go buy the book for the bards,
Sure.
So I have an idea. But like, anytime we encountered anything, any kind of creature, it was like, oh, you see this shape scurry, it looks, it's kind of like a bug, but and you're like, oh shit, like, what is that? You know what I mean? Like, everybody freaks out immediately. And then it turns out it's just like a rust beetle, but which is fine until all of our weapons get turned to,
exactly
to dust. Right. But I mean, like you were saying though, sort of that wonder, that like, you're just mystified by what's happening, in the storytelling and getting into it. That's why I fell in love with D&D. I got to say to David, I'm assuming this is a Knights of the Round Table or Knights of the Dinner Table joke. That's a comic book about D&D players. If I'm wrong, that's fine, but I think that's what that's from. But no, that's kind of the thing, that whenever there's like a really cool new universe, because it's no fun sitting at the table and somebody goes, well, that's a kobold. And then the guy next to you is like, okay, it's only got 52 hit points. Like,
exactly.
let's take it down.
Let's get rid of the experts.
Like, that sucks, man. No, like, I don't know how long it's going to take to kill this thing. Do we even want to try? Should we run? I feel like we should run, like. But
Jeff, I want you to give some credit to the artists here, because one thing I'm an absolute sucker for, well, one, good art, of course, but I love good nature art, and this page right here just sucks me right in.
Yeah, I do have to give credit to Colt Idle, who's a neighbor of mine here. His father is Dick Idle. If you scroll down, you'll see Colt. Right there's Colt. So his dad is Dick Idle, who's a very, very famous Western artist. And Colt's style of painting is also Western. But I went to Colt and I said, listen, Colt, if we could get rid of the teepees and the cowboys and the buffalo, this is amazing fantasy art.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, if you will allow me access to your library of imagery, your paintings, I'll give you, part of what we're doing here. I'll give you some profit sharing to do it. And I couldn't believe it. He actually said yes.
It's awesome, man. Well, the very cool thing is being like where you live, you know what I mean? And sort of still being sort of like raw country, and so that I can only imagine the stuff I could come up with if I had the opportunity to sort of walk those landscapes and just kind of like let things bounce around inside my skull while I'm taking in all that nature, all that beauty that's out there. But while Mike's scrolling down, you're going to just see an absolute like all-star team of people around around Jeff. I mean, here's the thing is like, oh, you haven't launched a game yet, right? But it feels like you have, because you've got all of this stuff looks so legit and rock solid.
It's definitely a global art project for sure. Yeah. I think we've got 2 Russians, 6 Brazilians, 6 Italians, 2 Brits, 2 Aussies, 2 Americans. I mean, there's a lot.
That's amazing. That's one thing I definitely really opened my eyes when I started joining the channel and doing content, is how you don't really see when a Kickstarter campaign goes live. You do not see all the blood, sweat, tears, effort, hours that go into these projects before they even get to Kickstarter.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's one of the things I like, that I know Tim and I have talked about, that we really like about doing this, is we kind of get to kind of shine the light on everything that goes into these projects before they even launch. I mean, obviously this has been your baby for a very long time, and there are some people that are gonna see that on Kickstarter and have no idea everything that went into this prior. And so it's a lot.
I just want to say, like, he talks about first product launching in October, and for Mike and I, October, it might as well be, 100 years from now. But I bet you for Jeff, it feels like, oh, that's way too soon. That's right around the corner, like.
I will be honest with you. This time it doesn't.
Oh, good.
Because before we were going to launch the 4-game series, which is this huge, expensive series with tons of minis, and it even had the Harbinger 3D terrain system in it. And so we had to push back our date to get our writing done for all 4 of the games. And then we started realizing that we had a lot of interest in the Harbinger sets from other systems, because ours is an agnostic system that uses a 1-inch grid. So it'll work with D&D. It'll work with any system that uses a 1-inch grid. So we pulled the Harbinger products out of the Brahode system to make them optional. And then we realized, hey, nobody knows who Weathervane Games is. Nobody knows who Jeff Irving is. We need to earn their trust, show them how flippin' fun this system is that we've been working on for 3 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then we'll say, okay, now you've seen what this is. Now trust us with opening your wallets a little bit. But at first, I want to get people something that's affordable so they know how fun it is.
Right. Yeah. It's a great idea. I'm looking forward to it, man. I really am.
I think Seth LaFair wishes they'd have done that. I think Seth LaFair kind of wishes they'd have done Jaws of the Lion before Gloomhaven.
Yeah, well, you look and see what Jaws of the Lion did, right? And then I myself stopped playing my Gloomhaven very early because I was having trouble with the rules.
Yes.
Like learning it out of the book. I asked for Christmas last year. I'm looking at it right over here. Jaws of the Lion. I haven't played it yet, but I'm like, I'm playing that freaking game first.
Yep.
So then I can get into my Gloomhaven campaign and, because I've heard that once you know Jaws of the Lion and it's a very, it gets you into the, the rule set and the play style, then you can just slide right into Gloomhaven without too much.
It's an easier lift, though. It's an easier lift for sure.
And I say that as an experienced gamer. Like I play a lot of games all kinds of games, like campaign style games, heavy Euros, party games. I mean, we play everything. I did even before the show. I loved every kind of game, played role-playing games. And man, I was just with Gloomhaven. It was just, and this isn't like it. I'm not dogging it because it's amazing what they've done. That is no small feat. But with the legacy style of it, I didn't want to jack up my game so early in it that by the time I felt like I understood how I was playing it, I've already kind of gone off the rails.
Yeah, who wants to commit to a campaign when you don't understand the rules and you get into it and you think, oh, I missed out on all this stuff I could have done.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Yep.
So
I think starting with something that is approachable and easy to jump into is huge, because I'm just going to say, to piggyback on that, I didn't have a regular group before I started gaming with Tim and Bob, and I really wanted to try Gloomhaven. And the only regular gamer I had that would indulge me on this was a 10-year-old. So Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion was absolutely perfect for us. And sure enough, within 2 episodes, I knew exactly how to play full-fledged Gloomhaven. And so it was the perfect step ladder into that game system. And you're right. I bet they do kind of wish they had started with that one, because Gloomhaven is daunting, especially when you look at that box and everything that it has to offer.
But that's kind of the cool thing about like what Jeff's doing with Rahode that had me excited when we talked at Origins, because it's like, oh, this sounds so accessible, but also, again, like you were saying earlier, just kind of going back to sort of that wonder of a new world. There's not all these known quantities, right? Like just kind of going into it and just with all these new things and these new ideas, I'm really looking forward to it, because you really have to set yourself apart, right? To stand out, right? Like any kind of game you're making, right? Whether you're making a trading in the Mediterranean game, or you're making a party game with dry erase boards, you better have something unique that's going to make you stand out from the pack, right?
And I hope that some of the things that we've been working so hard to accomplish, some of the holy grails for us is some of them are, I should say, a GM-less experience for 1 to 6 players that actually plays well with 1 to 6 players.
Yeah.
You know how you see those reviews out there and they say, hey, this game plays perfect with 3. It's unplayable with 4.
Right.
Or they say you can solo this, but you got a 3-hand. You got to do 3 heroes. So you got to run through. No, our game. I'll be honest. Each player count from 1 to 6 in our system plays very differently. A 1-player game, a solo game, plays almost like a roguelike. You have to run at times. You have to be stealthy. You have to sneak around. And the 6-player game is a brawl. It is a slugfest, because there are so many things coming at a group of 6. So the experience changes with all those player counts, but we have 32 scaling mechanisms in our system to make sure that the game is fun and challenging at all 6. So that's one of the things I hope we accomplish successfully, and that'll come out in the reviews. I mean, if people feel like we did well, great.
Right.
Yeah. So couple questions. They're not quite related. So I'll start with, of course, I'm pulling up more art, and as Andrew says here, more incredible art. And it sounds like you have based on that team breakdown where there's like 15 people, you have a very different person doing your character art than you do having your world art, and it looks just as amazing here.
It's consistent. Yeah.
I try to stick with a similar style for the hero art. I tend to stick with like one artist, maybe two, so that stylistically they're similar. Andrew Tintori Montalto, an Italian fellow, did a lot of our character art, or Clayher Beckleher, a Russian fellow. He did a lot of it. And I mean, look at these guys. Not a single one of these heroes looks the part. And to me, that's the mystique. That's some of the mystique of our world, is that you're not playing a human. You're not playing an elf. You're playing a Tyrell, a Minoc, an Athakul. Some of these things look like enemies. They look unsavory.
Right.
But that's the joy of a fresh fantasy world is it's not black and white. You know?
Right.
You're getting, and each one of the races has unique abilities. And so the asymmetry is really important in our world, that you've got, races that complement each other as groups.
So that I don't forget my other question while I'm still scrolling. You mentioned roguelike, so we've definitely got some video game background in you. Talk a little bit about that, because I'm sure that was an influence on this type of game.
Well, we've got, I'm in love with Darkest Dungeon, the PC version. I'm in love with what they did is they came out and they said, listen, none of you people have a challenge level that is where it should be. Make a game so hard that your heroes are essentially walking meat sacks. They're just waiting to die. Right. And so it really, playing that game, it was so hard just to make it through. And so what I wanted to do is kind of pay an homage to that in our world, with the challenge level being really high. So from the get-go, let's say you're playing you're playing solo. So yes, it's going to play roguelike, which means any creature, even those humble creature that you might wander across in one of the overlands biomes, which would be kind of like the easiest areas of the world, is capable of killing you. And so you have to be ready to run. We always allow you to run, except for when you're fighting legendary creatures. So you've always got the option, except against those big ones, to get the heck out, to just run. But we also give you that really high challenge level, because it's just so much more satisfying to get loot when you basically come out of it with 3 hit points left, right?
Yeah, it does.
So we got this thing is not easy. And then we've got 4 challenge levels, 4 difficulty. We've got story mode, role play mode, hardcore gamer mode, and gauntlet mode. And I promise you, in gauntlet mode, set a stopwatch for how long you're going to live.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, to what Andrew is saying, I'm just really impressed with the look of all of this. It really has a nice, I don't know, it's consistent, like you said, but yeah, it just really, really pops. It looks great, and it's unique.
Yeah, it's definitely at least, there's no way to be original these days. But at least I think what we're accomplishing successfully is at least we're trying to put a fresh spin. We're trying.
Absolutely.
There's a few concepts from D&D that I just couldn't live without in the world of Rahode. Owlbears, ours actually fly, and they're called Nocturnas. I love banshees. I've always been mystified by this kind of seductive female nature spirit that kind of turns you against your friends and kind of seduces you. So I've got a banshee in the game. She's called the Ghostvale Mistress. And then what was the other thing?
I thought that was Mike's ex-girlfriend. My bad.
Busted.
What's her name? Write that down. The other thing is lizard men. I always hated lizard men in D&D, so I set out to make reptilian races interesting in Brahod, and we have 3 of them. We have the Drellrune, the Sahrune, and the Juern, and they're all cousins. And so we spent a lot of time developing those races and making them extremely interesting, and the relationships between them. So
nice. Nice. Yeah. Andrew
Yeah,
brought
like,
up a really good point, saying artwork is a great way to be original.
Yeah.
And yeah.
yeah, like you said, I'm not seeing the very predictable like classes and races in this, and
No.
I think that's what is really making this stand out to me.
Well, we do. I will say this though, Mike. We are giving people there's 12 pre-generated heroes in the core box of the 4-game series, and there's a total of 18 once you get to the second expansion, and they're all based on familiar archetypes. So there is the traditional kind of warrior. We call our warriors blades. We call our mages sparks. We call our rogues shadows. And so even though it's not a direct take on it, we pay homage to those archetypes so that if you have a specific style that you like to meet within a group or party, you're still able to find the hero that does that for you.
Where did the balloons come from? What did I do to get the balloons?
I like that. There's just only so many dwarves and elves and orcs I can take.
I know it.
So,
no, this. I mean, I told you when we were talking at Origins, I thought that this looked just awesome. I'm glad to see it's still going strong, and that I see you on Facebook all the time, right? You're building up your presence. That's half the battle, right? You don't have Simon behind you. You don't have Fantasy Flight behind you. You don't have Cephalofair behind you. So you've got to get your name out there. You got to, give people a chance to meet you, get to know the system, and the world and everything. And
they have to trust me. They have to listen to me speak and know that I know what I'm talking about, But again, that entry point product is our way of saying, hey, we get it. We get it. You don't know who we are. You don't know me. Let us prove to you just how hard we've been working on this thing. And then we'll ask you to open your wallet, because then you're going to be like, hey, I'm all in. This is so fun. So yeah, that's my hope.
I'll be honest, seriously, just from the 20 minutes of showing our viewers screenshots, I think it's very evident here how much has gone into this. So and we're getting tons of compliments on the art and everything, and it's deserving.
And I will tell everybody, because this is what happens to me, right? Is I walk and I look at like through the game store when we're not here and we're filming. We film in our studio, and it's in the back of a game store. And I talk about this all the time. I'll walk through the game store sometimes when we got like a little break in between, doing videos. And, you walk around, you pick up box covers, and some of them you put right back. And that could be an amazing game in there, but it doesn't, the art doesn't do anything for you, or it doesn't look that good, And then, you grab this game off the shelf. It's got awesome art. It grabs you. Well, guess what? Now I'm turning the box over and I'm reading the back of the box. I'm going to learn about this dang game. And I can, like, it was kind of the same thing when because we talked like a few days, like at Origins, we talked early in Origins, and then had you like planned to have you come on, like the next day or 2 days later or whatever. Yep. And so it's like, okay, well, let me see what this guy's all about. Right. Like I walked by your booth, you were busy, but I got to see some of the stuff. Right. And then I was like looking you up online, and it's like, oh no, this is legit. And one of the nice things that we get to do with this show, we're not the biggest channel, but we do have a platform, and I love highlighting, the independents, right? Because I love Eric Lang. I've gotten to meet him. He's a wonderful dude. He doesn't need our help. His game's
doing okay.
Yeah,
so
Eric's just
Rising Childress.
they're gonna sell 1 million copies no matter who's publishing it, whatever. But I get really amped up when I see just badass stuff coming out from the indie guys, and you're like, more people need to see this. They pick on me for having hipster picks, but it's because I see stuff like this all the time where it's like, oh dude, there's so much cool stuff you don't even know about. Like, give it a chance.
We're doing our best to kind of elevate the project from, it's enormous. We've got over 600,000 words of campaign and quest, which is about 8 novels worth of writing. But we're trying to elevate the shelf presence, like you said, from a passion project to something that looks commercially superior.
Right.
And as you know, based on all the games that are out there and all the numerous crowdfunding platforms, a lot of them don't quite get there. You know, and God bless all the designers, you know, but sometimes you just want to shake them and say, hey, listen, this is a great idea, or it's a kernel of a great idea. Spend a little money here on this art, you know? So, yeah, I mean, I'm a decent artist. I'm a decent writer. I'm a decent graphic designer, but I'm not great at any of them. So for me, it's about writing the rule basket and polishing the rule basket until it shines like a dime. And then in our quests and campaigns, when you're done and you're going to the next quest or the next section of the campaign, that kind of procedural play, when you fall out of a quest, that's where my rule set has to be perfect. And it has to be the connective tissue that still makes the game immersive and interesting without a GM, right? And that's the thing. It's like, well, you might be able to play this game without a GM, but is it interesting? Or is it flat? And so, you know, we've got over 1,500 cards and 23 decks of cards in the core box that those decks build a little bit as you go through the series. But it took that many cards for me to feel comfortable that it feels as living and breathing as do the quests and the campaign. And I think we've got it. And I'm feeling really good about it right now because it's been a long road.
Yeah, man, for sure. For sure. Well, you kind of touched on it, but why don't we kind of move into our topic? I think that, like, and again, you're a good dude to have on for this because obviously, you know, you're doing your research, you're trying to keep an eye on trends in the market and like what works, what doesn't work. Right. And so when we were talking about having Jeff on the show, we're going to have him do like a studio interview where we really just dig into Vrahode and we'll show lots of B-roll and all that stuff. You know, it'll be nice and edited and look real pretty. But like here, just having a conversation and interacting, like when it came up that we could talk about like trends in the gaming industry, I'm like, to me, that's a super interesting idea. And I really love hearing inside guys, you know, talk about guys that are in the industry trying, you know, scrapping, you know, and trying to do it. And, you know, Mike and I are on the outside, you know, we're looking in, you know, we got our faces pressed up against the glass and we've learned a lot, but there's still so much like, you know, we've got blind spots, you know, things that we don't see all the time. And so, and honestly, I think you will be our first friend that is like doing the style of game that you're doing versus, you know, the other people we know, they're just making other types of games, you know? And so also to kind of get your perspective on some of that and some of those trends and like, you know, what's good, what's bad, you know, I don't even want to say good and bad, but what do you like? What do you not like? You know, I mean, I guess I can say good and bad. I don't want to put you in a corner where you got to talk bad about anybody that you might have to work with in the future. But but
I'm a pretty big gamer, and I'm not nearly as discriminating on, you know, what I like and don't like. A lot of times, even bad games, I just to be able to sit down and play a game and even have it be flawed is amazing to me. You know, like I love playing Summer Camp. I've
never played it.
It's a little family game where you pick these little decks of cards and it's like you race through the summer camp and you get badges. And I mean, it's just hilarious and fun. So I'm not going to badmouth anybody.
Right. No, hey, listen, I like tons of games that a lot of people don't like. It's same thing. If I sit down and I can have a good time, like I don't need the perfect game. I just need a fun game. I need something, you know, and honestly, like just lots of respect to anybody that's ever made a game. Cause it's hard as hell to make anything, you know, and it's, you know, you're putting a little bit of yourself out there, right? When you do that. So it's tough to do.
Yep.
Oh,
hey, Jeff,
thanks,
before we go full-fledged into our topic, what other ways can people find you and Vrahode? I've linked the website in the chat here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you've looked at the website, we've also got a Facebook page for Weather Vane Games. We've got a group page on there called the Vrahode Tavern. That's a great place to interact with me because we're a very accessible company. I literally put my cell phone out there. My personal email is out there. I want to talk to people. You know what I mean? I want to talk to people. I'm not Simon. And that's quite frankly how we've gotten our game system as good as it is because of listening to people, doing polls, having them weigh in on artwork. So yeah, those are good ways. We're on Reddit. We have a Discord. We also have at Vrahode on Instagram. Pretty soon, we're going to be really active on TikTok because we have so many assets to share with people. Nice. So we're going to be on TikTok really soon. Our new marketing assistant will be helping us with that. So really with Reddit, Discord, I'm trying to think if there's any I'm missing. Facebook group, website. Oh, we have a YouTube channel. The Weather Vane Games YouTube channel will give you podcasts and blog. Well, the blog posts won't be on there. The podcasts are all on there. The trailers are on there. So that's the best ways to find us.
All right. Let me find that Weather Vane Games. I'm subbing right now.
Yeah, we basically did like really topic-based podcasts. So like if someone wanted to know, what is it like to play a Minoc in your world? We would cover, okay, well, the Minoc can't use cutting weapons and they heal here. And, you know, we really kind of got down into the weeds and got a little granular with the podcast. And it was fun.
Oh, that's good, man. That's perfect too, right? You've got your own platform so you can get into that nitty gritty. And I personally, as just somebody who gets excited when any kind of content creator responds, you know what I mean, to any kind of my feedback. You know, when you reach out, you're like, oh, they answered me. Like, you know, I reached out, I said something and they actually answered. They gave me, you know, they were like, it's cool. It feels good, you know, and
I love it. I love engagement.
Yeah, you feel like you're part of the community, you know. I mean, that's very cool. I like that. Yeah. So I subbed real quick. So
awesome.
So I'll be digging in there and we'll be sharing it. And then obviously, you know, Jeff, you see our stuff. You are always welcome to share any of your news. If you think about it, I'll try to share it on mine. I'm not always great about even sharing our own stuff on my own social media, but you know, if you're in the Board Game Rundown Facebook page and you want to drop a link to one of your, you know, some news you got or something, believe me, man, totally fine. You have you have my blessing, dude.
I would do it with discretion, of course. That's your space, but I'll tell you, I'm excited. We've got, you know, we're going to have 3 websites real soon. We're going to have the corporate site, the Weather Vane Games site, of course, Vrahode.com, but we're also going to have a Harbinger site that is just for the Harbinger 3D terrain system because it does go with other systems and it is pulled apart from Vrahode. It's going to have its own website. And so we just hired new web developers and they're going to be connecting all 3 of those sites together. And it's finally going to be up to date and reflect the 9 products we have. So I'm really excited. I'll be really excited to drive traffic to those. So when that happens, I may put a little post and say, hey, let us know what you think of our new websites.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome, dude. Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Yeah, engaging with your audience, definitely one of our most fun things to do here. As David said, I mean, we had, I don't know, 15 viewers on our show for what we called Friendsgiving. And you're right, just being able to interact with the people that are interested in the stuff you're creating, you know, really makes you stand out, I think.
Yeah, it does. Like and not, you know, I know Mythic's gone through a lot and they've taken their lumps. You know, I hung in there and paid all the extra money to get my all in for my Darkest Dungeon board game. I loved Leo. I thought Leo was this brilliant face man for that company. I mean, he was charming and approachable. And when they got into trouble with Darkest Dungeon and their IP, having to sell their IPs, Leo went away. And I thought it was the worst thing they could ever do, is because they took away this lovable central character and they hid him away because things got rough. And I thought, all you're doing is chumming the water at that point. You know, it's like, he needs to be out there.
Yeah, it's tough, man. And, you know, the market is so volatile, especially for like the smaller companies, you know, and there's all of these hiccups, there's all these snags, and there's really like, to me, there's like two groups that do the crowdfunding. There's the groups that are like, I'm backed it, it'll show up and I'll be happy when it gets here. And then there's the group where it's like, I haven't had an update in a week. Where's my game?
I'm mad. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to start throwing shade. Yeah. I know. And there's a few of them in every group. Doesn't matter how hard you try. Yeah.
Always. You're going to deal with it. You know, like it's just going to be a thing. I don't have that kind of time or emotional energy to spend on it, dude. If I back something, I go all in. I might look every once in a while and be like, oh, is that close to coming? You know what I mean? And I'll read the up.
I'm a completionist. I got to do it all.
Yeah. But I like also though, you know, it's like, it's going to get here, you know, and when it gets here, I'm going to be happy. And sometimes I'm just like, it's kind of nice to kind of forget about it. And then you get that shipping notice and you're like, oh, like, ooh.
That just happened with me. What did I just get? Oh, Orange Nebula. I backed all the extra planets for Unsettled.
Oh, nice.
And I didn't expect it. And all of a sudden I got that shipping notice. I'm like, oh, it's going to be a good week.
You're like, what's this 35-pound box coming to my house?
Well, I've got the all in for Chronicles of Drunagor with Apocalypse from Creative Game Studios.
Yeah.
I got that one coming, and it's going to be like 50 pounds a game.
Yeah.
I mean, huge.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's so much fun.
I think that is a good
trends, Mike. We're not talking about trends, Mike.
No trends. So I think our trend on the board game rundown is to not get to our topic as early as we can. So I think it's pretty obvious after showing everything that you've been working on why you picked the topic that you did. But maybe a little bit of insight on why you wanted to talk about board gaming trends and whatever trend you want to kick us off with.
Well, you know, I have to say this, though. I need to qualify that, you know, what I see, the trends that I'm going to see are going to be skewed and through the lens of somebody who is excited to develop and at the tail end of developing adventure/dungeon crawl games, you know, that are RPG adjacent. And so that tends to be where I spend most of my time when I look at the market. My competitors are, you know, those type of developers. And so just take it with a grain of salt what I say, because I'm not probably the guy to talk too much about party games, even though I love party games. I'm not the guy to talk about tableau games necessarily, but so understand my lens. But one of the things, you know, to me, trend wise, good or bad, and I'd love to hear what your listeners think, is this trending towards app-driven games. And it's a big topic. It's been a big topic for a while, but I've actually had the opportunity. I don't have here's my phone. I've had the opportunity to play several games that are app-driven. And I don't know, what do you guys think? Our system is not, in quotes, app-driven. Mm-hmm. We have some technology that goes with it in a music and ambient sound kind of adaptive audio app that goes with Rahode. But we don't have an app that runs our game. How many of those games have you guys played, or your listeners, and how effective are these apps? Like, Tim, you mentioned Descent. Mm-hmm. Well, I know Legends is heavy app driven.
Strictly app driven. So I kind of go, I got mixed feelings about it. Sometimes it's great. I loved playing Descent 2nd edition. All right. I got a ton of stuff for it. I think it's great. But I sometimes had a hard time getting people to want to do the 1v many. The second they put out that app, and we could all, like 4 of us could just team up and go through a campaign, and it could you just tell them what sets you got and it will make you a campaign. Right. Holy smokes, dude. Like, blew up. You know, during COVID, I played Imperial Assault, same rule set, right? Just Star Wars universe. I played that a bunch solo, you know, stuck in the house, you know, and with nobody, you know, so, you know, or, you know, well, I shouldn't say nobody, with nobody to play games with. My wife and my kids are sleeping, and I'm just up late, hunched over a board, you know, moving pieces around. But so the apps there are great. My concern is, there was a game that came out probably 10 years ago called Gollum Arcana. And it was a miniatures. You could get these pre-painted miniatures, and you'd use like the little laser pointer to like have line of sight. And it was sort of like a skirmish game.
Sure.
Well, the app for that is dead.
Yeah.
I've got Gollum Arcana stuff sitting in boxes that I don't even put on my game shelves. It's in storage basically because I can't do anything with it. All I can do with it is if I come up with some role-playing game, you know what I mean? And I want to use them as
use
the minis for something, you know, or if I'm trying to make my own game and it's like, okay, well, these are my proxies for these things, but I mean, you know, so it's like, I really, I love it, but I'm wary of it. I should say I enjoy it when it's done well, but I'm also kind of wary, like at least because I have Descent 3rd edition as well. I love it. When that app dies, I'm going to be very sad, but I'm still have all my 2nd edition stuff. And guess what? I'm going to keep it because I can get it played, even if, you know,
if everything falls apart.
Everything falls apart, the app goes away. I still got that box with all them goodies in it, and we can play 1v many. I'll be the bad guy. I don't care. Let's go.
What about you, Mike? Do you have any app games at all that you like?
Yeah, there's a few of them. So like the very first one I remember playing is Alchemist, and Alchemist is a CGE, really kind of a worker placement deduction game. And really what the app does, it just simplifies the deduction because you actually have to have somebody willing to not play and sit to the side with like the master list of, okay, here's the result you get if you combine those 2 ingredients. And I was like, wow, this app basically allows all players to play.
Nice.
That was really the first one I knew of. I have also used some of them that are used for like record keeping.
Sure.
And take some of the fiddliness out, like support apps, like with Sentinels of the Multiverse, for example. There's one of the big complaints of that game is that there's a lot to keep track of. And when you get all these status effects at once, an app really kind of gets all that information out in a much more streamlined way, as opposed to having shits out for all these status effects that you got to keep track of. I really like games that are either app driven or have apps as a support. But I'm also a technology guy. I mean, I worked with a cellular company for many years, so just kind of seeing how that technology can be used in analog game systems, I find fascinating. And
Me too.
It's interesting how Tim brought up Gollum Arcana because I've always said there are a lot of people that say, well, I won't even touch a game if it's app driven. And
I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair.
I don't think it's fair either, because my counter to that always is, well, what game do you, and it's always, well, what happens when they stop supporting the app? And my counter to that is always, well, what game do you know of that has an app that is no longer supported? Gollum Arcana is the only one I know of, and there are lots of app-driven, app-supported games that still have fully functioning apps. This is the only one I know of, so it's the outlier of all the ones that are still going strong. And I think by saying, I just think that some people really limit themselves by saying, I just won't even consider a game if it's app.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I'd love to know if either one of you guys have a favorite app-driven game. I have a couple.
I think.
Okay.
Go for it, Mike.
I'll give you time to think because you were doing the. So I do really like Alchemist. I think that game is fantastic. There's a party game I know Tim and I love, and it's Ready Set Bet. And this is a very simple game where one person could roll 2 d6s that move horses, and you're just in real time betting on those horses. Or you just have the app drive it, stream it to a TV, and then you got 75 inches of horses running across the screen, and you're betting on that. That's probably my favorite. I'll add one more, is that the first time I played Dune Imperium, I played it great game. And the first time I played it was 2 players, and it does have an app that can run the dummy player, which is required when you play 2 players.
Yeah.
I am not a big fan of running dummy players when I play 2 players.
Right.
This one is really simple to run. It is so straightforward. I didn't even want to use the app. I tried it and I'm like, this is really simple. All I'm doing is drawing 1 card. I don't need an app to draw 1 card for me.
Yeah. Exactly.
But still, it was well implemented though. It was well done.
So some of my favorite app-driven ones, app-assisted, I should say. I mean, Descent 2nd Edition, Descent 3rd Edition. I think those are amazing. I agree with Mike with the Ready, Set, Bet. It provides an experience, but it's not required. I think that's nice. I think that the app optional is nice. I kind of liked a comment that Andrew said earlier where he likes his games either analog or digital.
Right.
And I do love digital. I do love digital implementations of board games. Like I have Lords of Waterdeep on my iPad. I play it all the time. I have Catan on my iPad. I have Sentinels of the Multiverse on my iPad. I also have the physical copies of all those games, over here too. But
I like Journeys in Middle Earth as an app assisted game real well. I think they did a nice job with assisting the game on Journeys. And I also really love the original Dark Tower, and I really love what Restoration Games did with Return to Dark Tower.
They crushed it, man. They crushed it.
Here's my thing, Tim, is think about that tower, right? Think about the capabilities that phone has to send stuff to that speaker, to that mechanism in the middle. And there's so much more that they can do with that kind of central element. I mean, I love what they did and it's amazing. And with the expansions that you can change the way the game, the app works with the game, how it interacts with you.
Right.
But man, is there so much more that tower can do. I mean, you could have that thing, you could have music playing, you could have it talk to you. And I mean, that's coming.
Yeah.
And that's where I get excited because I see what Restoration Games did with Return to Dark Tower. And I think, oh, you just wait. You know what I mean? There's going to be that. I see that. Remember that great big statue on the cover of the Player's Handbook that you're going to have that sitting at the center of the table telling you.
It's going to talk.
Reading the foreteller narration to you right at the middle of the table.
Yeah. I was going to bring up foreteller because that's a nice middle ground kind of thing, right? Like foreteller is a really cool site. You got, if you haven't heard of them, you should check them out. A, they're just cool people involved in that company. And B, what they do is pretty neat because they give you that app, that companion app where it gives you like the dialogue and the sounds and just, and music and everything. And it just helps provide an immersive experience if you're into that kind of thing. I'm into that kind of thing. I dig it. I'm the guy that next time I play Thunder Road Vendetta, I want to be playing Mad Max Fury Road, like score while we're playing, like to me, that's fun. That's it, but yeah, I do think there's kind of like a fine line, right? I think that the app integration, when done really well, is really exciting and very cool. And the tech that you can do with it can be incredible. But I do also love my analog games. Maybe I'm the old man, get off my porch, but
I'm with you. What we're doing, the approach we're taking, instead of doing narration with our game, is we're partnering with Tabletone. They've created a custom Vrahod music and ambient sound app that allows you to set up scenes for the night, depending on the biomes that you're playing in. Or you can actually go to the sound of each individual enemy and hear what they sound like in battle and stuff. So it's a nice way to just set it and forget it kind of thing.
I want to say
immersion.
I love that kind of stuff. I really like to play music when gaming is happening here. Atmospheric stuff, if I can do it. Every game I've tried that has like a specific soundtrack to the game, I am playing that soundtrack. I love to have that musical immersion.
I had that Diablo CD when Diablo made God, I burnt that thing up.
Yeah, I remember that. I mean,
The
it beats
Diablo
the
soundtrack. Really
it beats
good,
the hell
too.
out of. I remember in the very early '90s, we were playing D&D. It was very early on, and somebody had freaking. It was like Green Sleeves and maybe 3 other songs. Like it was just over and over. It was just like generic Ren Fair, medieval music. And I mean, we've come so far. It feels so good. We've come so far.
But even that was better than nothing, you know.
That what 100%. I mean, back then that was all we knew. And then we used to play this role-playing game called Anomaly, and you played as either angels or demons, right? It's in the right around the time that game came out was in those of you old enough will remember there was a big craze for Gregorian chant CDs. Oh man, we'd have that crap. We'd have that crap playing the whole time while we're playing this game. We're playing as angels and stuff, and just wild, weird times, man. You just never know.
Play the Halo soundtrack in the background.
How long before your first CD comes out, Mike?
We got some more practice to do, that's for sure.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, I know here's one that Tim really likes. Tim, what about My Father's Work?
That app is 90.
Uh-oh.
We're good.
Am I back? That app is
just put me back where I belong. Go ahead.
That app is 90% amazing. It is. Have you played My Father's Work, Jeff?
I haven't. No, I'll tell you, I'm very intrigued by the theme of it, but I haven't had time to pick that one up yet.
Oh, it's incredible. It's a great game by Renegade. I love it. It's really well produced. It's got a price tag on it. That'll make you think twice. But I'm telling you, the gameplay in there, like there's a lot of hours of gameplay in there. My gripe about the app is that sometimes it reads the dialogue and a lot of times it doesn't. So somebody then is reading the iPad to everybody else, which is fine. I guess just give me all of one or the other. Like,
sure.
I would prefer that it just read it. I could just play it. Everybody can hear the setting that's getting set up, because sometimes if I'm just reading it or somebody else is reading it, you might just zone out. You may not be paying as much attention. I mean, look, we don't have the production value to make that captivating, scene like you can get in some apps. And
I get it.
But it's a badass game. The game's awesome. The gameplay is really good. And even like that's my nitpick. Like other than that, I love the game. Like I don't really have a lot of complaints.
It either needs to read it all or not.
Yeah, that's my only gripe. That's my only gripe.
Oh, I got to say one more audio support app that is amazing. I got to give props to Jamie Jolly with Shadowborn Games and Oathsworn, getting James Cosmo to do all their narration. He played Lord Commander Mormont on Game of Thrones, and he's a really nice guy to boot. But to listen to him do the narration, wow. That's
like the weird, crazy, cool thing that just feels like it starts to legitimize board games as like a hobby, is when you start getting professional actors doing, voiceover, and things like that. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. We're coming to the mainstream. They better look out.
That's right.
I gotta harken back to the very first app-driven game I ever played. App assisted, I would call it, One Night Ultimate Werewolf.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, you can have somebody read out all the roles and say, "Hey, geez, man, it's been so long. I'm like drawing a blank. The seer, do this and do that. Look at this player's card." But just having the app do all that for you with the background music to boot. I always like to dim the lights, play the music really loud. I really feel like the app helps One Night Ultimate Werewolf shine.
I'm with Trevor. I do not like that game. But
that's okay.
My daughter introduced me to that game, and I have to say my first experience playing it was just fine. I was kind of like, what is this? But whatever.
Well, I used to back when I was just like a Magic the Gathering player and a Warhammer player, I had friends that were not gamers, but they would play Mafia all the time. We'd sit and drink and play Mafia with just a deck of playing cards. And Mafia is basically werewolf. You know, it's werewolf, it's Mafia. You know, you get the ace. You're you get the werewolf. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so then when I learned about One Night, I'm just like, what is all this garbage? Like, and I to be fair to them, to Bezier or whoever makes One Night, I was kind of over just that version of werewolf at that point also, but
One Night Ultimate Werewolf was introduced to me by my very first gaming group. It was the very first thing we played when we showed up. We played it for like an hour before we played anything else. And then the first 6 months of gaming with that group, that's what we did. We would start with 5 or 6 games of Werewolf. So, and I just happen to really love bluffing and interaction in games and trying to read people's tells. So I still love that game.
Yeah, I like regular Werewolf
for
better.
Me.
I like regular
I'm totally
Werewolf
okay
better, but
people just shouting and you trying to figure out something out of the nonsense. I'm totally cool with that.
I'm better at that kind of thing than I am at the deep deductive reasoning stuff. Like when my family used to pull out the Clue game, my eyes rolled back in my head. I'm just like, I'm not going to win this. I'm not going to win this.
Speaking of which, I had a couple other deduction games that came to mind that are app assisted, and then we can jump into a different trend if you want.
Sure.
Chronicles of Crime is one of them.
Oh, yeah.
I will say I didn't like that game that much, but the app works extremely well. Like you're just scanning a barcode on a character, and then it's going to give you that character's dialogue for the entire game. And I just thought that was really well done on how that app works. The other one, Search for Planet X, is a deduction game where the theme is you're trying to figure out where certain planets are in the sky. You're trying to find Planet X, of course. And the app, I couldn't imagine playing it without the app. I think it would be very tedious.
Yep.
You want to talk about another trend?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Well, we talked about app-driven games.
Yeah, we did.
Let's talk about this. Let's talk about the trend of bigger and more elaborate miniatures.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know what players think about this. I know as a common backer, for a while I was kind of a sucker for that kind of thing. It was like the minis were so cool, I couldn't say no. But after getting a few Kickstarters, not all of those games with the big elaborate minis even played that well. It was almost like they were using some kind of rule set to back selling minis, as opposed to a great game that just happened to have a ton of cool minis. Do you think that's something that's kind of on the downturn now, or do you see more of that coming?
I mean, I don't think it's on the downturn. I mean, look at Awakened Realms and Nemesis, you know.
I did the all-in.
10,600,000, by the way.
I did the all-in. Did you guys do it?
I didn't.
Well, I already had Nemesis and Lockdown and all that. So I had to finish, great games, right? Semi-co-op, which someday I want to create a semi-co-op game. I just love that. I love something about that, where you have moments where you play together, but ultimately I don't trust you.
Yeah. I like the tension. I like the tension that it brings. I really do.
Yeah. Very cool.
No, I was an all-in. My very first Kickstarter. Actually, it was my second. Technically, it was my second Kickstarter, but my first Kickstarter was more than like $20, $15. Was Cthulhu Wars. Okay, Sandy Peterson games.
Oh yeah.
All in. I have everything. Oh, well, I didn't back two things for Cthulhu Wars, but I have everything else for Cthulhu Wars. I was all in. Fantastic miniatures. Yeah. Now, luckily for me, I enjoy that game immensely. It is one of my all-time favorite games. But that is not the case for every game I have with Amazing Minis. One that I did go all in on, and it had a non-mini option, and I'm like, oh, don't be foolish. I must have the miniatures for this game.
Of course.
And it fell kind of flat with me. I still have it because I just need to try it again, I guess. But that's a Great Wall from Awakened Realms. Great Wall. I played
Beautiful miniatures.
Amazing miniatures. Amazing. And I played it at 5 players, hated it. Played it at 4 players, hated it. I'm told I need to play it at 3 players. So I'll get there. But it was just rough, and but again, like captivated by amazing art. The game has interesting mechanics that just don't seem to come together. And maybe it was those higher player counts. I do think our first experience was also sort of sullied by having an add-on character, like a stretch goal character that was not very well developed and was completely broken when we played it. And when we did our review of it, we brought it up, and like somebody was like, "Oh, it's not a broken character. It's designed exactly the way." And then we went to like BGG and got on those forums, and people are like, "No, it's not broken. They're defending it." And then when they re-released it and they did like the second edition, they fixed it. They fixed that damn character. Those liars. They knew it was busted.
Yeah.
All those people were lying to themselves. I just personally will just never play with that character. I play that game again. Like, look, that guy's not an option. I know he looks cool. He's super cool, but nobody else is going to have fun playing if anybody plays that character. But that is totally a game where I thought, like, this, I had Lords of Hellas. I love Lords of Hellas. Thought Lords of Hellas was amazing.
I did Ragnarok.
Yeah. So I haven't played Ragnarok yet.
So I think Awakened Realms is the best place to start and even end this conversation.
Well, I got one other thing to add when we get to the end, but I'll let you go now, Mike.
Oh no, and I'm not even trying to end it, but I think they have really kind of set the bar for, and Cool Mini or not, but very much Awakened Realms, just adding more and more stuff. And that can go into miniatures as well, but really they were hanging their hat on Nemesis and Lords of Hellas, and those were hits. Don't get me wrong, great games that have stood up. But like the very first one that I think made people cautious, us in particular, as Tim mentioned, was the Great Wall. It's like, now wait a minute, just because it looks good and has a ton of content and amazing miniatures, that still doesn't mean the game's any good. And now I'm hearing, so the first time, I've told this story a bunch of times, so I'll keep the story short. First time I ever got to game with these guys, we played Lords of Hellas. And nice. I loved it. It was awesome. Yeah. It's a great game. I love how
area control, right?
Yeah.
Yes, area control.
Baby.
But there's so many different in-game triggers, and you're kind of dipping your toes into multiple of those at the same time. Meanwhile, giving you this epic dudes on a map experience. That's just like, okay, this is what I want out of an epic dudes on a map game. And then that night, I went and backed Lords of Ragnarok. That campaign was live, and that's why I begged to play that game, and we did. I loved it. And now I'm hearing middling reviews on Lords of Ragnarok. And it makes you wonder, like, okay, Lords of Hellas was a really good game with amazing art and components and miniatures. And, of course, Awakened Realms and Adam Kopinski, who, of course, designed Nemesis and many other amazing games, including the Lords of Hellas and Ragnarok. But now I'm hearing that Lords of Ragnarok is not as good as Lords of Hellas. And you would think, well, it has to be better, right? Like, they took what they learned from the first game and improved it. And
but you got to understand too. There's a lot of other area control games that have come out since too, though.
Yeah.
That might be a new litmus test for it. So that's maybe why it's getting those middling reviews. And maybe it is a great game. It's just the competition's stiffer now.
Could be
that.
I can't wait to play it.
I can't wait to play it either.
Here's what I wonder if what happened is it's kind of like what Jeff just said. If it's kind of the same game, just with the new theme. And so like maybe you like one theme more than another. But again, Lords of Hellas was, I don't know, like 2016, 2017. You know what I mean? It's a little older now, right? I mean, today's standard of board games, right? If it's more than 6 months old, it might as well be 100.
Well, look at Axis and Allies. I mean, that is an amazing area control game.
Yeah,
fun, dice chucker. 6 chances for a 4 or less, 5 chances
let's
for
go.
a 3.
Let's go.
But it just, you don't hear about it anymore because the bar has been raised.
Yeah.
So as a here's where I'm an outlier in this. So I know a lot of people, you guys like to have everything for a game, completionists. Hey, if I like this game system, give me everything that exists for it. And there's a lot of people like that in this hobby. There's a lot of people that buy based on the way the game looks and how nice the miniatures are, without even really knowing a whole lot about how the game actually functions. And I'm an outlier because I am so rational with everything I buy, including games, which aren't even that rational of a hobby anyway.
No.
But I'm just ridiculously rational with every single purchase I make, to a T, to a fault. So completionism, blowing me away with like 50,000 miniatures and 10 expansion boxes never works for me. In fact, that's a red flag for me. I'm like, wait a minute. How good is the actual game when the base game has 5 miniatures, but then you throw 50 more and 8 more boxes?
Exactly.
Like, how
Well,
good is that game if it can't stand on its own merit with one box?
calm down, Mike.
Two or
Calm
three
down, Mike.
boxes?
I
get
can't
very skeptical.
listen. You're wrong. You're wrong. I can't just have the original 5 X-Men. I need to have every weirdo that showed up in every expansion. I need the X-Force. I need the X Factor. I need the X-Men from the 80s. I need the X-Men from the 90s when they redid that. I need my House of M X-Men. Come on, Mike, get real. No, this is why, honestly, what Mike
I'm
is
an
saying.
outlier.
The reason, I'll tell you why I've never backed a Marvel United game, but I have bought stuff for Marvel United later, is because when I want to back it, I want to back everything because I want all the goodies. Marvel United is a fine game. There's nothing wrong with it. But
wait, what made you think I was talking about Marvel United, Tim? Was it that obvious?
Was it? Oh, because it 5 characters in one box, and then you got to buy 3 characters in this box, and then 2 characters in this box.
Correct. That drives me nuts.
But what drives me nuts is the way CMON's all-in pledges aren't all in anymore. The CMON all-in pledge is like the base game and the stretch goals. And then for $20 more, you can get this expansion. And then for $50, you can get this expansion. And then $20, like, no, all in. Just give me all in. Just have one button that I can click and I just get all the stuff and I'm done. And I'm going to forget about this project for a year. And hope my wife doesn't divorce me in the meantime for spending all that money on board games.
I just did that with Retaliation. It's like it took me an hour to keep updating my pledge to make sure I was getting everything, and I'm like, just do it all.
Yeah.
Yes.
I had that problem with, now Mike doesn't like this game and it's not a miniatures game, but I had that problem with the Dinosaur Island Kickstarter, like the second one. So I didn't back it the first time. I played it, my friend's copy at a convention, and I was like, I love this game. And there was a Kickstarter going for the Totally Liquid, but I couldn't tell what I was getting with the way that they had stuff worded. And I wasn't sure what was Totally Liquid and what was, Dinosaur. Like, just give me the, I just kind of is this, I screenshot it and I sent a picture of it to my sister. I'm like, am I getting everything? Is this? And she's like, yeah, I think so. I'm like, okay, cool. And it worked out. So I guess for me, if I'm going to back a game, usually I get like everything but the playmat. I rarely ever get the playmat, mostly because I have a hard time putting the playmat somewhere. But I want all the content. I just do.
I've never been a playmat guy because I've had a board game table for a while, and to me, that is a playmat. I got a built-in playmat in my table.
Some of those playmats, though, especially when you've got like, it helps. Madara, perfect example. Madara, their playmats give you kind of a really nice, almost like a tarot layout for how your cards should be and stuff. So some of those, I would defend playmats when it's card driven play. And if you don't have a playmat to keep things lined up, your table can look kind of messy.
Now, I will say, I will take a playmat. I don't turn them down. I just, for whatever reason, that is where my brain is able to somehow like come back to reality and draw a line. Like I just spent $200, but I'm not going to spend that extra 30 on that playmat. A playmat, what are they thinking? $30, get out of here. Here's my $250. Please give me my game. Thank you.
Thank you.
I need my stacks and stacks of boxes. So it's not like, I don't know that I can't say that it makes like rational sense. I think playmats are awesome. I just usually then end up going, man, I wish I had gotten the playmat. Like Scythe and Rising Sun, for example. Those were games where it's like, oh, I wish I had the playmats for those.
I'd love to sit down and play some Scythe. Good game.
But
so
I will say games with miniatures, like miniatures. So there was a game I didn't back that I thought, again, according to their pictures, was going to have amazing miniatures. And also I was into the theme because I like horror movies, right? But the Evil Dead board game, for example, Evil Dead board game. It's fun. It's on theme. It's not a perfect game, but if you like horror, you're going to have a good time playing it. The problem is it's a small company and the minis are not that great. The quality on them is weak. It's a small company. I'm not dogging them for it. They barely even got the game out. Another company kind of came in, rescued that project and shipped it out. So I ain't mad at them, but it does suck though when you get excited and you're like, oh, this stuff's going to look awesome. I can't wait. I'm going to have this awesome Bruce Campbell mini. Like, let's rock and roll. Let's go. And then you're like, oh, he looks a little melty. Okay.
Well, let me tell you, that sort of issue can happen literally later on in the process. It can happen if you haven't spent enough money on your molds, then you're going to lose a ton of detail. So that is another spot that kind of crappy mini syndrome can happen. Yeah. Because our minis for our games tend to be smaller and simpler than most of the really big, complex Awakened Realms stuff.
Oh, sure.
But we're really going to make sure that we proof those molds, so that we're not losing a lot of detail.
But now wait, I'm assuming he meant Bubba Hotep? Yeah, he did. Hold on 1 second. I got something for Evan.
Uh-oh. Here we go.
Evan made another comment that I was going to transition to here in a second.
All right. Is anybody else here familiar with Bubba Hotep and what that is? So it's a Bruce Campbell movie where he plays Elvis in a nursing home, right? And he's fighting off the mummy. I have a Bruce Campbell autographed Bubba Hotep picture. It says, "Hey Tim, TCB." I met him at a convention. He's like, "What do you want signed?" And I was like, "Oh, it's got to be Bubba Hotep. It's got to be your Elvis." And nobody believes he's Elvis. They think he's an Elvis impersonator. So it's even better. But no, and that's a good point though about the minis and not paying attention. And again, if you don't have the money though, right, for the tooling, and you're just trying to get it out.
Our mold costs for our game system are $150,000.
Yeah.
So we're spending the money to do them right.
Yeah. Well, and now the other thing though, right, is that I will give Simon credit for this, especially when like the Blood Rage minis came out, right? When Blood Rage came out, and I'm watching Eric Lang take the Hydra, which has got all those tentacles sticking out the back of it, right? And he's taking that thing and he's throwing it on the floor and it's not breaking, so the plastic they used was really good. Those minis.
PVC in there, that PVC gives those miniatures enough bend.
Yeah.
That they're much more forgiving, but a lot of people that paint their minis don't like it because it bends and it cracks your paint. So
it doesn't. Right.
You got to kind of judge what you're going to do.
No. I'll take my stuff intact that falls off the table. You know what I mean? Yep. You can add a little paint if you need to, but I've had games. I've got an Alien vs Predator game, and those minis are so fragile that even if you pull it out of the foam the wrong way, the gun's going to snap off. Yeah. Now those minis look great, but I'm afraid to touch them.
Yeah.
So what are you gonna say, Mike?
Having played Blood Rage and loving it, I backed Rising Sun, the second game in the Eric Lang trilogy, with all of the expansion gods.
I like it.
And
look at that. Look at the hearts.
But the expansion gods are extremely hard to play. I would even argue that they're not even balanced. There's the learning curve to playing well with those expansion gods, it's higher, and therefore I wonder if they were just added in after the fact, and maybe that's why they were stretch goals or added in afterwards. Then, of course, the third game in this trilogy, Ankh. Now that I've played a lot of the expansion stuff, I did not go all in on Ankh because I thought this extra stuff I got with Rising Sun I didn't really like. But all the extra stuff added to Ankh was amazing. Great. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Isn't that the way it always works, though? Then you got to go to the secondary market. Dang it.
Yeah, and I know. And so here I am. I got one of the expansions, and it doesn't even have the miniatures for the buildings. It's like, man, I got miniatures for all the buildings except for these pyramids. You gotta be kidding me. Or the what are they? The pharaohs, the sphinxes. There we go, the sphinxes. All right, so Evan got me with this one. What about games that already existed but get re-released as deluxe versions? Very much so. I got with Castles of Burgundy. So Castles of Burgundy, old Steffenfeld game, one of my original favorite games. Very, very good, mechanically sound game. And so I've had this old, busted, ugly Ravensburger edition for 10 years. And then I'm like, oh, Awakened Realms is coming out with a version of Castles of Burgundy. Okay, I'm in.
Sure.
But then they're like, oh, we're going to have a version that has a miniature for every building. Okay, that seems a bit much to me. I'm not moving these miniatures into combat.
Right.
They're not a menacing force being moved around the map. I'm literally just taking them out of the game tray they're in, plopping them on my player board, and that's where they'll sit for the remainder of the game.
Optional fiddliness.
Yes. So I didn't go for all the miniatures, but I will say and I don't know, maybe you guys can add to this part. Here's the thing that got me on this. So I did get the acrylic tiles because those was like, oh, that's a massive upgrade. Give me those. Well, the acrylic tiles that go on your player board and are the main part of the game was like one of the main pledges from the very get-go. I backed that and I said, okay, awesome. But then later in the campaign, they added acrylic tiles for like the scoring tiles and a couple other things. And they added this after the campaign had already started. So I'm like, wait a minute. Give me all the acrylic and I'll be happy. Okay, that's the version I want. Great. And I'm kind of one of those set it and forget it people. Like I'll go back and I'll look and maybe see how it's doing. Let me look at the funding goals. Never in a million years do I consider, oh, they added a whole different pledge with other stuff that might be something I want. Offer that from the beginning, for the love of God.
Yeah. Oh, I've done that so many times. So many times where I've gone back and been like, oh, well, I'm glad I checked. I'd have missed that.
And so like these extra, like I think it's like 15 acrylic tiles that are for like scoring that you don't really touch a whole lot. It doesn't bother me. But there's a whole slew of people that are completely chapped by, oh, there's extra 15 acrylic tiles they didn't get. I don't really care. It's just that I wish I would have known about the option when the thing went live, because I was just literally waiting for that campaign to go live. So
well, along those lines, Mike, one of the things I got to tell you that chaps me is I see a trend towards more games being released when they're not ready. How do we know they're not ready? Well, we know they're not ready because 6 months later, they're releasing it again as version 1.5. And I'm like, what? Stars of Arcarios. And it just goes on and on. I mean, it's like, you should have got this done the first time. I don't like that. I don't like that trend.
Yeah, that's rough. That is rough. And I've got to wonder, because Stars of Arcarios is what, OOM games?
Yeah, and I did the original campaign and I did the update because I wanted the current version. So I'm complaining as a customer, not just someone out here throwing trash.
No, that's totally fine though. I mean, you spent your money, right?
Yeah.
But so I guess what I'm saying is like, I just wonder what the behind the scenes with that was. Did they feel pressured? Did they have timelines set up and they felt like they needed to meet them? And it's like, okay, well, the Kickstarter did well enough. Now we can afford to like fix it. It's almost like putting out like half a movie and then doing the director's cut later and be like, guys, trust me, like it's actually pretty good if you just rent it, later. We'll give you the good version later.
Wait till it goes to DVD. Remember when we used to say that?
Yeah.
Wait till it goes to DVD.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's that?
I know. I've got so many forms of outdated media in the house. But I just think that what you should do, it's my opinion, is let's just say Stars of Icarius. Not that this is what happened, but or anything. I'm just using them as an example because they came up and everything else is complete fabrication that I'm about to say.
Right.
So what you do is if you have it, you backed it, you made a very successful Kickstarter, and you're like, it's going to fill in a year. You're like, oh, this isn't going to be ready in a year. We can put something out to everybody in a year, but it's not really going to be like our vision. It's not going to be what we want it to be. So, maybe we'll relaunch again and, after we've delivered, we'll relaunch again. And then, it'll be our second printing and hopefully everybody will be happy.
Absolutely.
What you really should do is just bite the bullet and go, hey guys, we need 6 more months of development. It's going to take a little bit longer. I
personally, as a game developer, I would rather be like Blizzard. Everybody waits on Blizzard to get stuff done.
Right.
They wait, they delay it. But by God, when Blizzard releases a title, it's ready to play. Does it have a few bugs? Sure. But Blizzard waits till their stuff's ready. And that's what we're doing. We're not going to rush anything out. When we launch, it's ready. So.
Yeah, because even when we talked at Origins, you had a different timetable then for Brahode than what you do now.
Yes. Because of the entry point game. Yeah.
Yeah. And there have been there's games that I have backed or that I'm waiting on still. And they're like, oh, well, we wanted to make sure this is right. So we sent proofs back, like it's bouncing back between them and the manufacturer. And you're never going to hear me complain about that, because if that means I don't get a card that's printed off, off center, if that means that all the components are going to be really good, if that means you tweak the rule book and refine some things, beauty. Like, yeah, I'll wait. Well, I don't care. I just want a good game.
I think it's really nice when, kind of like Mike said about the expansion character, it's nice when you are one of those people that likes to buy the expansions and go for the all in, or at least the gameplay all in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the feeling of backing a campaign, doing the all in, and opening an expansion and having it be so obviously a profit grab.
Right.
Not a legitimate expansion that adds content and new cards and it needs to be substantive. It can't just be fluff.
Well, I will say, so here's my opinion. So this may or may not be fair. This is just my opinion.
Yeah.
I will use Zombicide as an example. Okay. Zombicide, any version of Zombicide, big box, core box of Zombicide that they put out, there's 30 rando characters that are IP adjacent or directly, IP stuff.
Yeah.
Do any of them actually really change gameplay or affect gameplay in like a really interesting asymmetric way? Usually not. Usually not. Now I will say, like when I played Zombicide, Black Death or whatever, my buddy had backed it and painted it, and we played as the knights from Holy Grail.
Nice.
It was awesome. We had a great time. Yeah. Every time zombies showed up, we're like, run away, run away. And it was a hoot, man. We had a great time. Was that necessary? Was that required? But a lot of that is extraneous fluff. It's just, it's one thing if it's thrown in for free, like, hey, stretch goal, thanks guys. here it is. I love it. Give it to me. But if they want, they dangle it out. If they dangle it out there, like here's an expansion box, and you get these characters. It's like, well, I do want to have everything. It's my
difficult needle. It's a difficult needle to thread when you talk from a developer standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Is I want my campaign to be. I want it to incentivize backers because they feel like they're going to get things during the campaign that they wouldn't otherwise get, right?
Yes, sure.
But my preference, and maybe some of your listeners even want to chime in, my preference from a developer standpoint is to do it at a reduced price. What I don't want to do, especially because we're marketing our products as a game system, is I don't want to have things that aren't available later.
Sure.
At least things that have to do with the gameplay mechanics. Now, that's not to say that I might not, exclude the gold coin that's just, pretty.
Yeah.
But to me, I don't, if it's a game system, then you want the whole toolbox later to be able to write your own content and use all the assets. So I find that kind of a difficult needle to thread.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, if you don't give people enough exclusives, in addition to cost savings, are they properly incentivized to say back?
That's totally fair. And you can't do, I shouldn't say can't, shouldn't do, in my opinion. I'll use this as an example because this is the most egregious version of this that I can think of. Simon did a game that was going to be Kickstarter only. The only way you're ever going to be able to buy this game is on Kickstarter. It's called Hate. Really dark theme, very cool game. It's a game I enjoy quite a bit. I think it's very cool.
Violent.
Not for everybody. Definitely not for most people. It is very violent. But it's a very cool, to me, skirmish game that I think is super cool. Pissed off a lot of people when 2 years after the Kickstarter failed, it shows up on Mini Market. Hey, we got this exclusive deal with Miniature Market. And it's like, well, that's kind of some BS, man, because the whole idea is that you're only able to get this game because you back the Kickstarter. Like, that's it. I do like what you're saying, though, where it's like, if it is integral to gameplay, you should be able to have access to it. I also don't have a problem if Vrahode has a challenge coin that they gave to all the backers, right? All the backers get it. And let's just say you got 500 extra of them and you're at Gen Con at your Weathervane Games booth and you're like, hey man, I'm selling these challenge coins for $20 a pop.
Yeah, that's different.
That's a different animal, right?
Yeah.
Hey, like, because also I don't think people understand how expensive booths are and how hard it is for indie guys to get to cons, recoup costs, or even break even, right? Break even, much less make money. At cons.
Imagine being Weathervane Games. I mean, we did 5 cons and had no products to sell.
And you got no product to sell.
We had no tchotchke. We didn't even sell t-shirts.
Yeah.
All we were there to do was to make our game system better. So
yeah.
I think that's going to show when people play our game, is that all we were there to do is try to make sure it was airtight.
And that's it. Yeah, I mean, in a way, that's like an investment in your own product, right?
Right. That's the way we looked at it.
Yeah, and you have to realistically, but I just really don't like it when it's. I really again, I think you hit the nail on the head when you're talking about, like, if I need this to play the game, or this is going to provide some really interesting and unique aspect to my game, I would want more people to see that. And by only making that an exclusive thing doesn't make sense. Nope. Now it's like, oh, you want these alternate sculpts for these dudes? Oh, you like this version? You want to see what, like, look at these badass versions we got made up?
Perfect example.
Yeah.
Alternate sculpts. Darkest Dungeon did it with theirs. They did alternate sculpts of their heroes. And I thought that was brilliant. That's brilliant.
I've seen games like Gender Flip, right? So you get like, oh, here's the other side, right? Yep. Awesome. I like it. What a great option, right? Doesn't affect gameplay.
Right.
Doesn't matter, but
perfect example.
That's my opinion, I guess.
Yep.
What you got, Mike? Mr. Frugal?
No, well, I'll tell you, there was one. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but we talked about this. We talked about this publisher So there was a game we actually had an opportunity to cover, and it is a legacy campaign style game from Games or OOM. I think they changed it to Open Owl Studios now.
Yes, they just recently did.
Called Stone Saga.
Yep.
And this is a big, sprawling campaign game. We had an opportunity to cover that on our channel. We thought it could be a big draw. And in fact, sure enough, it raised 1.6 million Canadian on Kickstarter, which is easily over $1 million US. And we thought that would be a good opportunity for us. We didn't unfortunately end up with enough time to cover it. So it is what it is. That does happen. Sometimes schedules don't align.
Right.
This game uses 100% AI art. There's no artist listed on this game anywhere.
Wow. Okay. Did not know that. I did not know that.
And the see full credits. There is no artist listed, not available. And so this is a newer trend that we're starting to see, and I think I'm really kind of switching gears here, but again, this is one we had an opportunity to cover. So it's when you mentioned that publisher, it kind of stood out to me. I'll highlight the game here, but this box cover very clearly to me is AI art, and then every art piece in this game is AI art. And this game brought 1.6 million on Kickstarter, and everything in here is AI art.
Wow.
Not a fan. I don't think you should be able to profit off of that. I think it's totally fine when it's in your prototype and you're using it to make your prototype more visually appealing, but you're not profiting off of your prototype. You put this out to consumers and said, hey, please buy my game. By the way, we did not pay a single artist for this game and raised 1.6 million.
Now, I'll go devil's advocate real quick.
Okay.
This is not a position that I necessarily agree with, but I do feel like somebody should just put this out there.
Yep.
Jeff, I'm going to bet that you spent a fair amount of money on art.
Yep.
For your game, right?
It's expensive.
So if you get rid of that overhead there, you remove that from your budget. That gives you more money to do other things.
Certainly.
Whether that's profit or whether you're actually investing that money in the game into adding on components, or if that allows you to bring the cost of the game down. I don't know that any of those things are a factor. I'm just putting that out there into the world, and that is not necessarily my opinion, but I'm just putting it out there. I just felt like let's just show the other side. But go for it, Jeff.
My decision with our company is that we will not use any AI art. We have not. I like to hire artists. I like to employ artists. I like different styles. I like the fact that humans create beautiful things that are imperfect, but they're imperfect in a magical way, right? To me, it's character. So I made the decision to not do it and won't do it. However, that's the water's edge for me. If OOM Games decides that's what they want to do, I'm not going to judge it, because I think eventually what's going to happen with a lot of that stuff is it's going to come back to bite them, because when you work with artists and you pay them and you have contracts and they fulfill contracts, then you own the art. They reserve the right to use their own art to promote themselves still. But with AI, because AI is derivative, it is derivative of everything that's put into the AI model to output, right? So it's essentially an amalgamation of artists that are putting out the AI art, right? It's because you can't have output without proper input. So I think this battle of legality is yet to be fought out. I think it's going to be more restrictive in the future. I think products like Stone Saga will, of course, be grandfathered or
Oh,
whatever.
right. Yeah.
But no, I like human artists. I was a fine art student in college, and graphic designer, and I would hate to think that, all that segment of people out there would be replaced with AI. But I've had discussions with other game designers that feel differently. They're waiting to find out what happens legally with it, but they're also waiting for the AI art to improve.
Sure.
Much like app-driven games, right? We feel like apps they're getting there. It's coming along, but it's not quite there yet. Same thing with AI art. I'm fearful. I'm fearful for the artists.
It's kind of a gray area right now.
Yeah, I think because I do legitimately see both sides of the coin. Like, let's just say I had this amazing idea for a game. I am not talented enough to create art for that game. I can just tell you that right now. I am not. But I also, if it was tomorrow, I do not have the financial means to hire an artist, right? To do. So if I was really driven and gung-ho, I would have to rely on that AI art, which is a new tool that even 5 years ago was not available, right? So I understand the quandary. But like you, Jeff, I have one of my very best friends. He was in my wedding. You know what I mean? He's a graphic designer. He's an artist. He and I back 20 years ago tried to make a comic book together. You know what I mean? Like I was the writer, he's the artist. We work on stuff. I've met so many artists just being a comic book fan, back in the day, and going to conventions and meeting artists, and then getting into the hobby, and then meeting, artists that do games. Lauren Brown, she did the cover for the Gen Con book. She did art for a game called Deck of Wonders. I love her artwork. She's done magic cards. She's all kinds of stuff. Like, I just know so many cool artists, and that, like game design, right? It doesn't really pay a lot, and it's like, it's a passion, and as somebody that is passionate about a lot of things, I just respect that and love that so much. I want to support those people in any way I can. And I feel like, you should pay artists to do stuff. That's my opinion. Now, again, I also will be the first one to say that I could not go out and hire an artist to do my artwork for a game, game X that I didn't design, but let's just pretend that there was one.
Yeah. That's really funny that you frame it that way, Tim, because think about this. You've got the big five, okay? The big five game companies, right? They can afford to hire artists, but then you've got all these little indie guys like me out there. How are they supposed to compete with the big guys without gravitating towards using AI art? Right. And maybe that's OOM. They've decided that this is our ticket. This is how we become a big guy, is we just give up on real artists. Well, if I have to give up on real artists, I'm giving up on what I'm doing, because I'm not going to do it. Sure. That's just me.
So that's what's interesting about bringing this one up, is it really kind of gets a lot of people to draw an ethical line in the sand of whether they're okay with artists not getting paid to do their work, and their existing work getting used in other products in a way. Because like you said, there's no output without an input. So it's interesting to talk about, for sure.
I challenge anybody that's not a human being to make art as beautiful as the Scythe art. People can have mixed feelings. People can have mixed feelings on Scythe, but the artwork is incredible. It is just incredible.
It's so incredible. It's haunting almost. It's atmospheric. It's futuristic, yet it's retro. It's grimdark. It's grimdark, but it's positive. You're right. I would submit to you, though, Tim. I say the same thing about ISS Vanguard. I love the feel of that game. I love the art is so vivid, and it's just compelling to me. Love it.
And again, right, like as a kid, I grew up just reading comic books, and I was always drawn to like the Todd McFarlane, the Jim Lee, like just love, the colors and just the, everything. Everything felt dynamic, yet it's still, and it's, so I just love that kind of stuff. And it would be, and I have so much, it's kind of like, anybody that can create stuff that I love, you know, whether it's board games or the art, you know, or movies or TV. And it's like, I just am in awe of people that have that ability, you know, to do that stuff. And I don't want it to go away. You know,
no. My favorite hat in game development, to be honest with you, after the rules are done, of course, is art director. I love working with artists. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I was so sad when we started to get to the end of needing art assets. I'm just like, oh, time to go to work. So
I haven't played this one, but you're not lying. That's a box alone that just sucks me in.
That's stunning.
Beautiful art. But not really unlike Scythe, right? Not unlike Scythe. It has kind of an atmospheric feel to the art and the color palettes. It's atmospheric. Right. And that's what you want from a good space game, and that's what you want from that kind of I don't, you know, almost industrialist, futurist, retro. Look at that. I mean, it's just gorgeous.
It was my first big Kickstarter. And it was my favorite game for a long time. It's still one of my favorite games.
Hey, Mike, that's not even a big Kickstarter. That Kickstarter was very reasonable compared to some of the Kickstarters I've backed. That's a baby Kickstarter. I just got a message.
Was the first $100 Kickstarter. I'm telling you, you can't just slap a whole bunch of gorgeous art miniatures and have a $400 pledge with 10 boxes and get me to go, oh yeah, I need all that stuff. I'm too rational. I'm sorry. I know that's like a cardinal sin for this hobby, but I just can't shake this rational financial buyer that I am.
Mike, I give you a hard time, but you're not wrong.
I know.
If my wife was a board gamer, I wouldn't be able to pay for my house. Thank God she's not into board games like I am. So she reins it in. I don't have to.
It was the first one I spent $100 on. So there you go.
Yeah. Scythe. I got to play I was stupid lucky, got to play a prototype of Scythe before I even saw the art. And I thought, oh, this game's pretty cool. You know, I didn't have the show. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. It was just dumb luck. We were using miniatures from other games to be the mechs, right? Like there was like a ship from Eclipse. I remember that specifically. The cards were in sleeves and they were glued to like magic cards, you know? So like, you know, anyways, I'm like, oh, Scythe was on my radar. Then when I started to see the artwork for Scythe, I was like, well, it's that meme of take all my money, right? It's you know, it's that little rascal Spanky throwing all the money out the window, right? That was me once Scythe happened. I was just, holy crap, it looks amazing. But yeah, I mean, I guess maybe this is a double standard. I would have a real problem with any major company using AI art because you don't need it. Now, if somebody's really just trying to scrap and bite and, you know, and claw their way and get a game made and they use it, I'm not going to say that I love it, but I may not damn them for it like I would if CMON decided. It's a double standard. I get it, but I'm a human being. I can feel both ways.
I kind of do too. It's like how are the little guys going to compete against the big guys? But obviously, until legal standards are set, and the little guy should know going into it, he's taking a risk by doing that.
Right.
It's a risk because if they come down on the side of, guess what, you don't own any of that, then your IP becomes public domain.
Right. Yeah.
Speaking of, this is I know this is John DeCampos, friend of the show, who's one of the more outspoken people I've seen against AI art. But I get it; he's an artist, and he also works for a small publisher and has helped develop and design multiple really cool games.
John's an artist, but he also hires people to do art when their art fits the game that he's trying to publish better than, you know, his style. But. And again, like, here's the really hard part, right? Is it's like, I'm watching the little guys, the independent guys bust their ass and still put out these games with great art. And it's like, And so it's kind of hard to have sympathy for the people that need it, because it's like, well, these guys found a way. These guys found a way to do it.
I think that's true. I think, and I can firmly give you some background on that. And there was a few things that we, as a little bitty company in rural Montana, had to come to grips with. And I originally set out to make the Brahode game system kind of a retro feel. I wanted it to be like one of those 80s D&D sessions you would have.
Mm-hmm.
But my marketing teams came to me and they said, listen, this doesn't look intentionally retro, and therefore it's not good enough. Because there are areas of it that look retro, but there's also areas of it that look modern. And so a lot of the stuff you're seeing on the website now even is dated. We've since gone borderless with most of our card art, which is more of a trend these days to be borderless. Mm-hmm. And we've gone back and hired people to begin to kind of redo some of the weaker facets of our artwork. And that harkens back to the discussion we had earlier about this idea of elevating indie games from passion project to something that's commercially viable and can compete against big guys. And that's really where at this point we are heading. We feel like when people see our box on the shelf, like you said, Tim, if you don't see that box on the shelf and doesn't speak to you, you might put it back. And so I do think that indie designers have to pay the artists or use AI, I guess. But for me, it's about paying the artists and really trying to step up to the plate and swing with the big guys.
And so Jim brings up a good point. Also, Jim's an artist, and I love his stuff. He's an amazing artist. Anyways, he talks about AI generated prose, also puts people out of work. And yeah, that's a problem. And I feel like it's similar to the art thing. Like, here's the thing is, I feel like I could do the prose, right? If I had a game that relied on that, I could come up with that. Like, I am a literature guy. Like I'm a reader, I love it, and I'm a world builder kind of guy, right? Like you, Jeff, like I got all these worlds rolling around in my head all the time,
Yeah.
And I could do that. If I had to draw them, I'd be screwed. Couldn't touch it. But I could write out some stuff that I feel like would be very interesting. But
Jim's right, though. It's just another, you can't have output without input on prose.
But it's a different, it's the same thing, but it's just a different facet or an outlet for it, right? And man, that's terrible. I hadn't even considered the prose, Jim. Yeah. That's a very good point. And I just think that what a bummer. That's terrible. And here's the thing is, I do feel like you can pick out, it's kind of like the AI generated art sometimes where you see where they don't quite get, like maybe like the hands have like an extra finger or the arms don't come out of the right place. I feel like the prose is sort of like the same thing where you're like, well, the logic jumps.
On the prose, though, if it cranks out something that's brilliant, except for 10 words, it's way easier to go back and fix 10 words, right? Than to fix art that it's either right or it's not.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think they're both horrible. I mean, to the people that do, that write and do art, I think it's scary.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, man. I mean, there was just a writer's strike over this kind of stuff, right?
Yep. Yeah. Who owns it?
I think you've got to preserve the arts. I just feel like, to me, it's probably going to be like synthetic food versus real food, right? The real food is always going to taste better than the synthetic stuff. And maybe that's a cheap analogy, but that's like the best way I can put it. I just think that you're going to know the real art. You're going to know the real music. You're going to know the real prose. You're going to know all the real stuff versus the pre-canned, whatever that they throw out. And
at least for now, but the scary part is, what about in the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
When it gets better and it doesn't have that extra finger,
right?
I mean, that starts to, I mean, I don't
It's
know.
like none of these people watch Terminator 2. What the hell is wrong with everybody? Yeah, thanks, Trevor.
Yeah.
That's my old gamer tag.
It's always a
Tim
fun
Bot.
one to bring up. I always like to hear people's opinions on the AI stuff. It's a hot
Thanks,
one right
Mike.
now.
You really took us down a dark rabbit hole there.
Yeah, I know. We can go to stuff that's a little more fun if you want. I'm looking at your list. Okay. There was one that you sent to us before. It was about games that have complex rules and iconography and are really just catered towards like the super hardcore gamers.
Well, we talked about Gloomhaven. And I mean, obviously, Gloomhaven gets the award for just, everybody's going to refer to Gloomhaven, right? They're going to refer to the heaviness of it. They're going to refer to the how long it takes to learn the rules. And I think, I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about what we're doing, but I think that trend towards maybe what I would consider I personally consider overly complex games and too much use of iconography. I understand that replacing excessive verbiage with a symbol makes sense. When you have a finite amount of real estate on a card, then it makes sense to give people symbols, have them learn that iconography or symbology, and refer them to a rule book. But the problem is, games have gone to a point, especially in my genre with adventure and dungeon crawls, they've gone to a point where you spend so much time in and out of a rule book that the only people who are going to play the damn thing with you are the uber nerds. Your family's their eyes are going to glaze over about a half an hour into you trying to teach them, and it's over, except for Fat Eric coming over to play. What we're trying to do with our products, get rid of iconography altogether whenever possible, replace it with plain speak, and make the rule system accessible enough that an 8-year-old can readily sit down at the table and play. In other words, a family can literally sit down and play our stuff. And that's what we want. We want it to be accessible, and we want it to be something that doesn't just flash out in a year. It's something that maybe will have some staying power and offer something to the game industry that doesn't just go away in an hour.
So I have a question for you. So with your game, right, with as minimal iconography as possible, right? Yeah. That completely makes your game language dependent, right? So
of course, you have to do more. You have a little bit heavier lift when it comes to localization, for sure. In other words, if you're going to make the game in Italian, you're going to make the game in French, then the text needs to be black on a light colored background so that you just have one plate. You plug in the Italian plate, you plug in the French plate, or else, it just takes more work.
No, but I guess in my brain, I see the trend with the iconography. Now with a RPG style of game, it can be a little tougher. It's really good in like worker placement games and things like that. I feel like, and again, though, it removes, language dependence, right? Like, cause then you just print that one rule book out in Italian instead of having to print all those cards out in Italian and French and Spanish and English. Right. This is one where I legit see both sides of the coin, but we are big fans, though, I will say, of both things here at the same time. We are big fans of the card does what it says it does. You know what I mean? Like, you play the card, it does exactly what it says it does. You don't need to look at the rule book. It's right here. It's clear. And then we're also big fans of sometimes going, the iconography is really clean, and once you understood that, you grok the whole game. You don't even need to look at the rule book.
Well, and I think it also comes down to, what is the designer's goal for the product?
Sure.
Right. What is my goal? Why am I creating Varhod the way that I am? I'm trying to create the games that I myself want to play. And the games that I want to play, I also want to be able to teach people readily. I want people I love that aren't necessarily hardcore gamers to play it with me. Right? They're not going to be in a normal gaming group with me where we meet every month and they have time to learn complex symbology and iconography. They just don't. And if I can't get them to the table and get the darn thing taught in a half an hour, and then they can read the cards on their own, chances are I'm not going to get a second chance with them. Right? So my goal is maximum accessibility and immersion. You know, that's kind of what we're heading towards. Are our cards wordier? Oh, you betcha. They're wordier, you know, by virtue of losing the iconography.
Yeah. No, and I think that there's room for both at the table. This is one where I think that now trust me, there's definitely some games where the iconography is not enough. But there's definitely some games where the iconography is perfect. Like,
oh yeah, no, you're right.
Like you get a playing card style player aid that breaks down these 7 icons or these 10 icons, and it just tells you what they do. And bing bang boom, great. That's not a game though that you're playing a campaign style game. You know what I mean? Or a game you're gonna. I'm just gonna call Rahode, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. A lifestyle kind of game, right? You know, where like Verhode's not just like a game where you're going to get to the table like once a year. You know, if you're getting Verhode for that, you're probably getting it for the wrong reasons. Like that's a game you want to get in, you want to live in for a little bit.
We're at about 326 playtest or games, playtest convention games. We're at about 326 playtest sessions with the game now. And not one time in all of those 326 games has anyone ever said, I wish this was icon based, or I'm missing the icons.
Sure.
If they had, it would have been something that I would have had to start questioning whether we needed to replace some verbiage with icons.
Sure.
But I think I hear enough people say it's immersive, and not a single person has asked for icons to replace things. So I do feel like even though it's a different approach, and maybe even in some people's minds dated, because iconography is so prevalent these days, you know, to replace text. But I'll accept that. You know what I mean? I'll wear that hat.
Well, no, and you know, like, so Evan's in here and he's talking about, you know, the board state for him, because he's got dyslexia, is easier to understand with iconography.
Yeah.
You know, simpler is better with cards. I think I see both. Like Jason, I think Jason nailed it. This is a game by game decision. You know, I think that there are definitely, I do enjoy a game when the iconography is very clean and we can go. But I also absolutely get stupid excited when what Bob said earlier in the chat, reading the card explains the card. I'm going to read this card, and then it's not like, wait, what does this do? It's like, no. It's right here, dude. It says it right here. And like, you know,
a perfect example of, you know, of iconography used pretty well, I think, not great, but pretty well, is Bard Sung. The game was flawed, you know, obviously it's for sale for $50 today. It's very cheap today, because it had some flaws. It did a lot of things right. And they had a really robust iconography with it. It just wasn't the approach I wanted to take. I wanted the game to feel more story-like, you know, like you're part of a story, like you're part of reading a fantasy novel. And so we strayed away from it for that reason. But also, our game is not a Gloomhaven. It's not a heavy lift. It's more of like if Gloomhaven and Hero Quest had a baby in an art gallery and Uncle Shadows of Brimstone raised the child. That's kind of where Vrahode exists, is in that pedigree.
Yeah,
icons can also become an issue where, you know, 15 minutes into a game, oh, there's an icon I haven't seen yet. Now, where do I find that icon explained? The accessibility of the explanation of those icons can really make or break iconography. If they're not all on the player aids or in the back of the rule book, it can be a major problem.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, yeah, if you're going to be icon heavy, you need to have great player aids. That's it. You have good player aids for the icons, you're good. I'm sorry, Mike. What were you going to say?
I know sometimes you got to print out like multiple copies of a rule book just to get everybody access to the available icons in the game because there aren't enough player aids to support all of them.
Right.
And that can be really frustrating. Now, obviously, you can just, photocopy the backs of rule books and everybody's got one. But I think that's one of those times, every 20 minutes you see a new icon, you don't know where to find it. That an overwhelming amount of iconography can actually become frustrating.
Yep. I totally agree. And I definitely understand, some of your viewers preferring iconography. Simpler is better, but that's kind of like the way we do it, because our cards tend to be a little wordier, is we have a title that will give you most of what you need. It'll tell you, like it'll say safe travel. Well, if you don't care to read the story, the flavor text, well, it's safe travel. You know what that card does. You flip it over and you go to the next card. So it gives you that out. You know what I mean? So some of the wording, some of the wordiness or the story or the immersion flavor text is optional. If you want that to feel like you're part of a story, it's there for you, but it's not mandatory.
Right.
One thing you said really hits the spot for me is accessibility. Because there's, like I said, there have been many times I was between groups and didn't have regular hardcore gamers to play with. And it was like, what games can I play right now? what I'm looking at the people that I have that are willing to play. What are their tolerance for depth and all that? And it's like, okay, I want to play something, not nothing. What do I have that will accommodate the people that I have available?
But still scratch your itch.
Yes. I'm a big fan of, I've used this phrase before, difficult decisions per rules ratio. If you can give me really difficult, crunchy decisions with a simple rule set, I find that really, really intriguing. And I'm always going to gravitate towards games like that. Don't get me wrong. I like plenty of heavy games that give me a lot of satisfaction in diving into those concepts and mastering the strategies of those games. But man, we could take a very simple core rule set and give a wide overarching various types of strategies. I'm just really impressed when people can pull that off.
I'll tell you what's also nice too is when you have a game that offers richness without a lot of bookkeeping. To me, that's a designer's, it's intentional. The designer set out to make something that is it's pleasing. It's pleasing without making you a certified public accountant to have a rich experience. And that's tough to do when you talk about RPG adjacent games, especially because if you want your character to seem lifelike and detailed enough, you've either got to have a decent amount of bookkeeping, or you need to have a mechanism that the player can work with that does that heavy lifting for them. It does that bookkeeping for them. I think that's kind of important.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some icon hell. I'm trying to think of a game that's like that, but I'm not.
There's definitely a few where it's really just hell because you can't find the reference for the icons easily. It either needs, first of all, everybody should just have a card, whether it's tarot size or playing card size, that's got the icons on it with like a quick, brief explanation, or it should be on the back of the flipping rule book.
Yeah, right on the back cover. Right on the back cover.
Exactly. I don't need to go to page 7 to figure it out. I don't even want it on the inside of the back cover. I want it to be the back cover because you just minimize handling. Nobody, here it is. Go look at it, right? I don't know. Mike, I know Mike's like this too. I'm a guy that if there's a game where I feel like it needs it and it doesn't come with it, I'll print out freaking player aids. I'll get on BGG. I'll download the PDFs. I print them out. Sometimes I even laminate them. You know what I mean? And I throw them in the box just because.
You get extra geek points for that, brother.
Well, sometimes. But if they're getting handled, all the time, I want them to last, and also I am somebody that likes blinging out my games a little bit sometimes.
Raise your hand if you sleeve your cards.
Sometimes.
Me too. I'm the games that I feel like they're gonna get a lot of play. I'm gonna try to sleeve them. I don't like what sleeving does to cards. It makes it, I don't know, makes them a little tougher. But I
hate
do
shuffling sleeved cards.
I know that's the tough part. But
it jacks up your storage solution too, potentially.
So allow Mr. Rational to step in. I ask myself and many others, how many games do you actually have that you'll play so many times that the cards will actually become worn? Most of us have hundreds of games. Rarely will get to them to the table 20 or more times. And if it's less than 20 plays, you're never going to notice any damage to your cards whatsoever.
Here's what I would submit to you, Mike. It's not necessarily you. It's Carl, your buddy, who refuses to sit at the table without eating Cheetos and drinking his cheap light beer and ruining your cards. Carl is to blame here.
It's all Carl's fault. I will just say,
I'm not aware of a whole lot of Carls in our group.
we got a few, Mike. We got a few. Let me just say one. There's some games where I'm playing and I feel like my hand's sweating, and I'm like, I got to sleeve these cards because I know I'm handling these cards a lot. Like I sleeved my copy of Heat. Now, granted, I found a bundle of sleeves that was $11 bucks shipped. It sleeved everything in the game. I'm good to go. It fits perfectly in the Sloppy Carl and Fat Eric.
Yes, Jason. Yes.
But those are, Heat is a game where you're holding those cards in your hand. Now, I have worn out copies of my Skull King. And like Andrew said, I've given them away. It's a euchre style game. We play the crap out of it. But this is like a $15 game. If I wear out a $15 game and I'm going to give a worn copy away to somebody else and I'm going to replace it, fine. If I got an $80 game or a $100 game and you're handling those cards all the time, I'm sleeving that sucker because I don't want to have to rebuy that game. So I think you can do it. I think you can do both. There's room for both. There's definitely games where I've invested in the sleeves. Mike knows this. Bob knows this. That's watching. We became obsessed with the game after us, right? That's kind of a deck building game. I sleeve the crap out of that game immediately because I know I'm going to play that game a ton.
Well, in deck builders too, your cards are getting a lot of action.
That's it. I mean, that's it, brother. That's it. And then there's games that I bought that have the quality of the card stock is not good.
Right.
I got to sleeve that game because I need those cards to last.
We've had enough players remind us that we need to spend more on our cards and make sure that they're, nice, heavy linen. So we're going to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. And then, Bobby, you're right. You don't want your starter cards being more worn than others because,
So there's. I'll be right back.
Oh, you're good, man. Mike, do you sleeve much? Anything?
I don't sleeve shit, Tim.
You cheap ass.
I have sleeved Star Wars Deck Builder because it came with them.
Mm-hmm.
I sleeved my One Night Ultimate Werewolf tiles because I've played it over 100 times and the edges are starting to show wear and you can see what's what. But I've played like Heat 25 times this year and the cards still look fine to me.
Yeah.
I sleeve mine.
Well, and there's something to be said for that too. Some companies spend more on their cards and it can be a durability issue, and better cards are just going to last longer, and obviously sleeved cards are going to last even longer. But there is the negative of the storage, and it doubles the thickness of your stack. So
Mike's raw dogging his sleeves, according to Jim.
Yeah, I just don't like the way the cards feel. Trying to shuffle them.
I know it. I don't like it either.
Yeah.
See, I guess kind of like Bob, I'm an old school Magic the Gathering player and used to have, you didn't have to, but you probably should have been sleeving your cards. You know, now I'm a lazy comic book collector. I never bagged and boarded all my stuff. Like sometimes I did if it was something that would be valuable, but I've got boxes of comic books. And if a real comic book collector would come through, they'd have a freaking fit because they're nothing's bagged. Nothing's boarded. It's like, man, I ain't got time for that. I read them and
analogy. I almost went there. For a second, I'm like, yeah, I don't. It's like,
Thank you.
like the condom, and then I didn't go there, and then Andrew did. I'm like, I'm so glad he did because I'm like, I was gonna go there. I thought, no.
Anything kind of goes on Whiskey Wednesday. That's
he's fine, man. It's
you
good.
missed it when you stepped away. Tim asked me if I sleeve anything, and I said I don't sleeve shit. Tim, are you kidding me?
And then I called him a cheap ass, so it's all right.
Well, you're not wrong either. So, yeah, and this I get, like, you know, sleeving, you know, cheap versions of prototype cards that, you know, that makes perfect sense.
Perfect sense.
That's different animal.
Yep. Yeah.
But
yeah, not my thing. I do really like blinging out bag building games. If I can get Geek Up bits or coin capsules to put around the cardboard chits, that tactile feeling of, you know, the heavy chip shuffling around in a bag. Yeah. That just makes such a big difference to me. It's not just protecting the chits. It's the feeling. It's the enjoyment of rifling around in that bag.
Yeah, we've actually did quite a bit of play testing just on the tactile facet of our token drawing for initiative and battle and stuff, and getting the bag size right so that you can actually fit your whole hand in. I mean, some people are like, I don't like that. It's interesting what people, you know, what is meaningful to people, you know. And I'm with you, Mike. I love if I can get like acrylic tokens instead of just cardboard. Oh.
Clack, 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 clack.
Yeah,
Mike,
I love it.
Mike, I was this close to ordering coin capsules for my Quacks at Quedlinburg, and then I realized it will totally screw up my storage solution if I do that, because I've got 3D printed boxes, color coded for all of my chits, and they fit them. The second I even put 2 of them in a coin capsule, they're not going to fit in that thing, and so I'm like, oh, I guess I'm not gonna.
Perfectly sized Plano container that I put inside that box with all of the coin capsules. It works very, very well.
Yeah, I guess I could do that.
But no, I get it though. When it like affects your storage solution, it's kind of like,
I mean, you got to take it into consideration, you know. And you see that all the time on Kickstarters, right? When it's like, oh, well, the insert hold sleeve cards. I guarantee you that's a question that gets asked every time.
Oh yeah. We have been asked the same thing. We designed our card box that goes in the core box of our 4-game series. Not only did we have to size it to expand for sleeved cards, but we also had to design it to accept all of the cards from each of the expansion into the core box.
Right.
So we had to do it with a cardboard 4-folded spacer that kind of sits at the back that just keeps the cards forward until you sleeve them and buy the expansions. So
yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
Had to do it. Yep.
And again, that's the trend now. That is the trend. Because okay, so let's go into the next trend then. Okay. So every game that comes to crowdfunding, the other question, other than, and this is probably the first question that gets asked, other than does the core box insert hold my sleeves and all the expansions? The next question number one. That's question number 2. Question number 1, does it play solo? That's question 1. Does it play solo?
COVID gave us that. COVID gave us a trend. And I mean, I can only speak for what I'm designing. It plays well with one player and with one hero. So that was a big goal of ours. That was kind of a holy grail for us is, you know, you can say that a game's soloable, but if it takes, you have to 3-hand 3 different heroes to play it solo. It's not a solo game.
Right.
So we have solo mode.
Well, it's funny because our buddy Bob, who's on the show with us, he says any co-op game can be a solo game because you just play 2-handed, you know.
Three-handed.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is like when I play, for example, when I was playing Descent Second Edition or Imperial Assault solo, I was running two characters. Well, I wanted to run two characters.
Exactly.
If I had to run three, I'd probably get too lazy with the upkeep that I would need to do to keep track of all three.
That's it. I think playing three heroes in a solo by yourself is okay as long as the bookkeeping for each hero is very, very quick and easy.
Right.
If each hero has a lot you've got to keep track of a lot of doodads, it's just cumbersome.
Yeah, and go on. What were you going to say?
Oh, I'm glad that more games are supporting solo modes. It's not my thing, but it's a huge thing. I mean, heck, there are YouTube channels based solely on the solo experience that are tens of times bigger than our channel. So it's a really big part of the gaming environment now. And so I totally understand getting games to fit solo, but man, some just shouldn't. It's just kind of, let's just slap this in there to see if we can make this game work for solo gamers, and that doesn't seem fair.
Not if it's an afterthought.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's the thing.
I was just going to say real fast, I'm not a solo gamer. I would much rather play two-handed to learn a game. That's about the only solo gaming I'll do.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm kind of like with Wayne in the comments earlier, like I'm a social guy. I really do. One of the things I love about board games is playing them and getting to know the people sitting at the table with me. You know what I mean? I love going to meetups and playing games with people that I've never met before. And I don't know anything about them, because that is you now have an in, and you have this great way to get to know other people. You know, it's like,
especially with co-op games. You know, I'm not as big a fan of going to a new group and playing something I'm learning that's competitive. That's like,
that's tough. That's tough.
But when it's co-op and you really get to learn how another person's mind functions and they understand how to operate in a group and to work, you know, what's special about their, you know, player, then I mean, that's so fun. So fun.
But I will say there are some very good solo game. Like I just played Kinfire Chronicles earlier, like a couple weeks ago. We got a review copy for the show. And it's one of those games where the card art's beautiful, the story's really interesting, you know, like all this stuff. And you play it either one or two players out of this little box, and then if you want to play with more players, you got to get another box to get more characters, right? I don't have a problem with that, because again, it's a slow box, and you're just going through a deck, and you're just trying to fight your way, you know, through this deck. And it's a really cool experience. And I really enjoyed that game quite a bit. And I just got done saying I love playing games with other people because I love being social and hanging out with other people. But that game was really cool. Now, I think if you're going to have a solo game, I don't want to take, like, also to Wayne's statement, I don't want to take an hour to set it up and then have to get into it. It's one thing if I'm trying to learn something because I got to teach the guys so we can do, you know, play it and get it reviewed for the show. It's another thing for my own recreational, you know, thing. If I can bust that game out and set up as 5 minutes, 10 minutes, awesome. If it starts to get more than that, I'd rather just go turn on my PlayStation and play a game, right? Like I just click a button and here we go. I'm in the game, and you know, in a couple minutes, let's dance.
Question for you, Tim. On Kinfire, when you go to expand it to play more players, how much is it? About how, and I'm not holding you to the exact dollar amount, but about how much is it? Because that leads me to another question I wanted to bring up with you.
I mean, essentially, you're buying another box, right? Like it's whatever that base game cost is. Yeah.
Because I know Orange Nebula, they have a new title out that just kickstarted called Spirit Fire, and I was really excited about it early on for the concept. Because I thought they were going to use the same business model as they did for Unsettled, in that each time you go to a planet, the rules are augmented, and that planet experience is kind of like a different little mini set of rules, right? And I expected the same kind of thing from Spiritfire. But what they did with Spiritfire, in addition to you having to buy new kingdoms, which are the planets essentially, you also have to buy more player capability.
Oh.
And there was some pushback on the forums about that model, that business model. I didn't know if you guys had even heard of Spiritfire, but it's a new thing that just launched from Orange Nebula, and I wasn't crazy about the execution of the art. Was a little drab for me, and I didn't end up backing it. But I didn't know if you guys had seen it or had any interest in it.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I need to look at that.
Spiritfire. Yeah.
And because here's the thing, like, so that Kinfire Chronicles, right? It makes sense to me because you have this box, you're basically going against this villain, and it comes with these two heroes.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got, I believe, 3 sets that are planned that are coming out. So 3 different kind of villains you're going after, and each box is going to have 2 different heroes.
Okay.
Right. Because it is essentially a 2-player game, a 1 or 2-player game, which then you can expand by if you have the other sets, right?
Right.
So you can expand up to 4 by adding that. So to me, that feels like a natural progression that doesn't feel forced or tacked on. Because here's the thing is, if I really like this one set, guess what? I'm going to go buy the other one because I want to fight that new dude. I want to see the new puzzles, the new things that are coming out.
The new hero builds. Yeah.
Right. And then I'm going to go to the other one, right? I'm going to try that too. And then, and now I can integrate them and see how they do over here. It's sort of like Sentinels of the Multiverse for me, right? You know, like, oh, I got these heroes that come in the base box. They're awesome. I know them really well. I'm going to grab this guy now and I'm going to throw him in here, plug and play. But it feels natural.
System though, that's I think what you're saying there. I think that's the mark of a really good game system. If you want to experience that system from various points of view from different heroes, I think that's a very good observation and good point.
No, I mean, so for me, it made sense. It works. It doesn't feel tacked on. It doesn't feel like a money grab. You know, it doesn't feel like greed. It just feels like, hey, we got this story with these characters going against this thing. And these characters going against this thing, you know what I mean? And so then you can then mix and match. If you're into that universe, if it jives with you, you know, hey, like here's a little more, let's go. So it feels very organic, right? It feels very natural. I've only played the 1 box with the 2 heroes. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Thought it was very cool.
Check out Spiritfire if you guys get a chance to
I'm
learn
gonna look
more
at
about it. What you think? I mean, I think it's got some promise. I'm not real sure how well it was marketed. You know, I'm not real sure what the campaign ended up bringing. Did you guys? Yeah, there you go.
A little over $1 million.
$1 million. It did about $1 million, so it wasn't unsuccessful,
right?
It just, I don't know. For me, for an adventure game, it seemed a lot about the structure of the way the cards laid out on your playmat. And the artwork was kind of drab, but I'm not saying I'm still not going to want to try to find a copy of it because I think there's some real promise in this idea of you kind of buying new kingdoms and new places to travel to. I like it.
Well, you're a big, world building guy. I mean, it seems like that would appeal to you for sure.
Yeah. If I can learn anything from it, even if it's flawed, I'm still going to want to buy it. Just like Trudvang. I've got a copy of that coming, and I know it's flawed. I know that game is not perfect, but there's things they did, and they had cards inserted in different regions of the world that you could change. I mean, I think there's still things as a designer I can learn from that.
Oh yeah, 100%, man. Yeah, 100%. I think there's always room, for growth and evolution, in your process and your approach.
A lot of times, if a game design gets panned by the industry, what happens is a lot of really cool mechanics that were a part of it get ignored because they just say, nope, that was not good. And then a lot of really, really neat gems that were part of that design get overlooked. And so if you go and you go back and you look at some of these games that weren't really rated very well, you're still going to find really brilliant things within them, I think.
Yeah. There's a lot there's a lot of inspiration to be found in there, right? And it's just finding that nice combination of how to make them all gel and work together.
That's it. How you put it together.
But
what about some of these games that try to be everything to everybody, where there's a 5-player game, and then there's a 6 and 7-player expansion, then there's a solo expansion, then there's a co-op expansion, then there's a campaign expansion, then there's a skirmish option that you have.
Yeah, I think we're guilty of that. I think we're deserving of that label in the world of Rahode. I think we have multiple modes of play and we have multiple difficulty levels, right? And so in order to pull those things off, I think what you have to do, like essentially, there's campaign mode in our game, right? It's all curated and it's all an overarching story, and there's mechanics that are unique to the campaign mode. If you step down from campaign mode to what we call expeditions, which is like 7 to 13 quests in a chain, right? So it's a big story still, but it doesn't take a year and a half to play. You can get it done in a couple months with your group. And then you step down from expeditions to missions. Those are 3 to 7 quests in a chain. So essentially, these gameplay modes are all curated gameplay modes, right? But the way we're stepping down is just by giving you shorter and smaller bites of gameplay to complete a story arc. And then we step down to skirmishes, and skirmishes are essentially a single region with multiple waves of enemies, right? But it's still using the same rule system. And then if you don't want to play missions at all, you're not, or campaign, you're not going to get any meaningful hero advancements unless you play procedurally and you do what we call commissions. And our commissions, when you finish tiers for a village, at the end of each tier is a meaningful hero advancement. And so that's the thing you have to be cognizant of when you're offering these different play modes, is as long as the differences are simple, as long as each one honors the rule system that's there, right? And you make it easy to kind of play between modes, I think it can be done. You know, and then also with our difficulty levels, we make those changes very easy for you to bookkeep, right? Mm-hmm. We're going to start you with 3 skills. And we're going to start the enemies with they have enemy behaviors, which makes them harder. But if you play story mode, you get 4 skills to start with, extra life, and the enemies don't have behaviors for a while. So it does it in simple ways of kind of pushing and pulling, you know, as opposed to like radical departures on rules. And I think that's how we feel like we've done it successfully. Ultimately, the players will be the judge of whether we did that or not.
Well, everything you explained makes a lot of sense. I mean, having different options, like a one shot, so to speak, of being able to play it, you know, just kind of once, you know, I think makes a lot of sense for the game system that you're working on, for sure.
Yeah,
it's kind of funny because I keep bringing this up, but like Descent or Imperial Assault specifically, not Descent, Imperial Assault. I talk about loving playing this game, playing through the campaigns, enjoying it. Because of the app, I can play it solo. Without the app, you can play up to 5 players. With the app, you can play 4. Or you can play the mode that I have never played, but one of my very good friends, it's the only way that he has played the game, and that's the skirmish mode. He's only ever played the skirmish mode. I've only ever played the campaign modes. In the same game, he loves it for completely different reasons than I love it. So I guess there's room for both. You know, like
there is. I think there is.
When done well.
It's like comparing a Diablo player to a WoW player.
Right.
You know, those are both fantasy games, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're different players. They're playing really differently in those two, you know, and I think if you can offer a game product that successfully offers small, meaningful bite-sized chunks. In other words, can I sit down and have a satisfying experience in a half an hour? Or I want to have long, satisfying nights with 3 of my buddies twice a month. And if I can deliver a product that does both of those things for both of those gamers and some of the in-between type people, then I feel like I've done right by my customer. I feel like that's what I really am striving for in this. And that's why I'm the guy that's the kind of the rule bucket. That's my thing, is can I put enough scaling mechanisms into this system that it'll literally do that, and it'll play itself, and it'll play with one hero, it'll play with 6. And again, I'm excited for people to judge me and say, you did it, or you did it on this count, but you didn't quite do it over here, or you forgot this. Cool. I'm ready.
Right.
I'll take the lumps.
I mean, that's how it goes. That's how it goes. But yeah, I think also though that the other side of this coin is definitely there's some games where that stuff feels shoehorned in. That solo player or 2-player mode, with an automa or a bot built in. Sometimes it's shoehorned in. It's not good. It's not satisfying. It changes the game. It's not the same game you're playing when you're playing it, at a regular or an optimal player count. And I guess if it's fun, it's fine. Great if you still have fun doing it, but sometimes you can lose the spirit of the game by trying to accommodate stuff when it doesn't make sense to accommodate it, or it's just not a natural fit, right?
No, they're just afraid. They're afraid to say that on the box because they think they're going to alienate buyers.
Yeah, you know what though? Not everybody's going to buy your game anyways. There's going to be people that aren't going to buy it for whatever reason. They say they're not going to buy it. They don't like the art. It's not their style of game. It takes too long, too high a player count, too low of player count, wrong theme. It's not sci-fi. It is sci-fi. You know what I mean? There's going to be people.
It is sci-fi.
Yeah. It's going to be what it's going to be. Essentially you got to put your vision out there. You got to, and just be true to yourself, what it is. If it's a good game, it's going to stand up,
absolutely.
It'll work. All right, Mike, you've been hitting us with the good topics. Keep going. What do you got, man?
That's funny because I was actually about to say my bucket might be running a little dry, and I'm referring back to Jeff's list here.
Jeff had a good list.
I know he did.
I threw some things at you.
Yeah.
We kind of covered some of them though.
Yeah, we've hit almost all of them.
Have we talked about failing forward and risk mitigation? We really haven't talked about that much as a trend.
Yeah, tell me. Yeah, hit on that one, Jeff. Get us going.
Yeah, and I would love to hear from some of your listeners too, because I talked about my love of Darkest Dungeon, the PC game when it came out, that it really said it made a completely different statement on gaming, and it said, "Oh, you think your game is challenging? Well, we're going to give you a challenge level and just throw down the gauntlet, and we're going to make the heroes go insane because of the duress of dealing with the Darkest Dungeon." Right? So they really just threw the industry on its head, and that's why Red Hook made all that money. Because Darkest Dungeon was this groundbreaking. It was just a little side scroller. I mean, it wasn't, the graphics weren't great. I'm not saying they weren't great. I loved the graphics.
No, it had a style to it, but it wasn't
it looked like it was drawn with a quill pen. It was thick and liney, and it had great narration. But again, it fell in the face of the trend, especially in board gaming, of this idea that we don't have to complete something in order to go on in the story, right? As long as we get a little bit of it done, or 50, as long as we reach one treasure, then we get to go on even if we fail. So there's the fail forward is something that's trending in gaming, because it's almost like giving people a participation ribbon because you're playing the game. Sure. Right? The other thing is risk mitigation, and that's by allowing players to commit to a risk level. In other words, I can make my attack on that enemy more powerful by throwing more dice. I've got more chances to do more damage. But in that mix of dice, I've also got some risk dice that are associated with that. So if I want to avoid Risk, all I have to do is not worry about maybe doing that double damage attack. I'll just throw less dice.
Oh, right.
And I just wanted to know what you guys think about if you're seeing that, like I'm seeing it in the industry, this idea of finding new ways to mitigate risk for players, and also this fail forward kind of softening of the challenge level.
Mike, do you want to go first, or you want me to go?
Go ahead. I'm not sure. I'm struggling to come up with a game that matches that fail forward concept.
So I'll just say
Oathsworn does it. Oathsworn does it.
Okay, so I haven't played Oathsworn. So I'll say that there's a few things. I know personally, my group, my buddies, we like co-ops, but if they're too easy, not interested. We want difficult co-ops. We want co-ops that are going to smack us around, right? We want the challenge because it feels good when we win. Okay. So it goes a couple ways. I love playing Marvel Legendary. Marvel Legendary, you set up a villain deck, you pick your heroes, you go. I've had that game just beat me silly. You know what I mean? Like, I can't beat this game. For me, I like the challenge of like, no, I'm going to beat this villain, and I'm going to beat it with this set of characters. And we just go, like, we've done that where we've said, I've had buddies where we said, tonight's the night that we win using this guy, these guys, and this guy. And we've re-racked.
And it's going to be a tough lift. It's going to be hard.
Yeah, we re-rack, play again, re-rack, play again, re-rack, play again. Now, there are some games, though, if you're going to fall forward, I want it to be interesting. So I'll give you an example. My Father's Work. We talked about it earlier tonight. My Father's Work, you play through 3 generations of your family. Okay. So the first generation, you're going to get an objective card. Everybody needs to do X amount of this, and then you go. So you play through that whole scenario, right? That whole era. At the end of that era, did you meet that goal? Yes or no? No? Okay, go to this page in this spiral book. That's your board for the next map. Yes? Go to this page. It's a different page. So it's not really failing forward because it is presenting.
It's branching based on how successful you were. Yeah.
So for me personally, I either want branching or re-rack, let's go again.
Yeah.
That's what I like. I personally, I'm a Gen Xer. I personally don't have a ton of interest in the participation ribbon. Hey, now listen, we've played the Grizzled over and over and over and not one, but hey, we had a great time trying to do it. You know what I mean? But again, that's more like the camaraderie in the story, because that time you do break through and you do win. I've won the Grizzled once.
Yeah.
I remember.
Exactly.
I remember that game.
That time you won that game.
And I remember the people that were playing it with me. And I remember how we felt when we did it. That's my personal opinion. If I'm going to play co-ops with my kids, I need easier co-ops. But I also do want the challenge, because I want them to have the experience that I do, like on a lower level, I mean, you scale it back a little bit, because I do want them to feel like they've got a chance, or that it's competitive. But I also, it's sort of like, I don't love Pandemic, but Pandemic Legacy, whether you fail or succeed, you either replay the month X amount of times. And if you never pass it right, you move on and you've got consequences. I know that that's how that works. I haven't played deep into Legacy, but I understand that concept. I'm fine with that, because there's consequences for having not, succeeded in the challenge, So again, that goes back to the branching sort of storylines, but you also eventually need to get through the damn game, so.
At some point you want to win. Well, here's what I submit to you is failing forward in risk mitigation is a more effective mechanism when the challenge level is high.
Sure.
When the challenge level is really high, then I'm more forgiving with games that allow you to kind of mitigate the risk just to try to make it a little further, or to fail forward. If maybe a key player has to live. Is part of the mechanic. It's
right.
Person has to live. If they die, sorry, you got to start over. But if one of the peripheral characters dies, you can still go to the next quest. So I think there's room for those mechanics. I just hate the idea of challenge being weakened. Challenge.
What's the point then? Yeah. I guess that's my whole thing. It's like, well, what's the point? I remember the very first time I played Robinson Crusoe. Okay, we were playing that. That's a hard game, really good, right? Yeah, and we were about to lose. This was at an open game night at our game store. God, ages ago. We're about to lose. We roll the weather die, and it's rain. We don't have enough shelter. We lose. Yep. Well, the guy whose game it was, the one that taught us the game, is like, well, we're just going to ignore that, like, so we can keep going. And I was just like,
what's the point?
Really?
Yeah.
Because we lost. And we played like 3 more rounds. I wasn't going to be a dick and leave the table because everybody, I didn't want to ruin everybody else's experience. Yeah. But to me, the rest of that game was null and void. It's like, oh, we won. And I'm like, well, we didn't really, in my brain. No. I didn't say that. I didn't poo-poo everybody, at the table. Hey, that's what you want to do. But me, I hated it. I hated it inside. I hated it so much.
Oh, well, and I'm a little OCD, so it would have really messed with my OCD to have someone do that to the rules and be like, oh no, just ignore that.
Yeah.
I've been like, what? That's why in our system, we always give you the opportunity. Well, except against legendary creatures.
Legendaries, you can run.
But you can just run. Just run. Chances are you're going to survive and you're going to get away. You're going to have consequences to running, but you can run. So
yeah, that's my opinion. I haven't played a ton of games where you can fail forward. Personally, the times I've seen it have been when
it's happening more with dice.
Sure,
like risk mitigation. That's happening a lot. The fail forward is it's kind of a slider. You know what I mean? It's like, how much do you have to do to go on to the next quest?
Well, and so some of that is that whole thing where people, it's almost like they're trying to appeal to people that want to play Euro games, but we have dice in it, and they're like, well, what's the dice mitigation? And it's like, dude, we're throwing dice. There's got to be some luck. I don't want to play a game that's solvable. If I did that, I'd just play chess. You know what I mean?
That's the right word though, Tim. It's luck. That seems to be a trend. People seem to complain more often that a game has too much luck. And I'm sorry. The most skilled warriors that go into battle, the ones that walk away, had a certain degree of luck.
Look, I'll tell you, 2 of my favorite movie characters of all time, lucky as hell, Han Solo and Indiana Jones, right? I know they're both Harrison Ford, but how many times do they just get lucky? What I mean? I love those guys. They just put it out there, like, you know what? Like, against all odds, we're going to go out there, and sometimes you make your own luck a little bit. But
That's right.
But yeah, man. And also the story. It's like, dude, all I needed was to do this, and I rolled and kaput. It's still a great story. I love it. I don't care. I don't have to win a game to have a great time. I just have to know I tried, and I put out a good effort. And again, sometimes your best stories are in the failures. When
I knew our system was playing at its best, when I knew we had arrived, is when I started killing people.
Yeah.
I thought, okay.
Yeah.
Now we're getting somewhere. Now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah, so, I like this. I like Andrew's the only co-op game he plays with his wife.
I think you might be right about it's a trend of trying to get that Euro or strategy gamer more into those campaign-driven games, and it's all around luck mitigation.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, as somebody, we talked about this game a little bit before, but somebody that absolutely loves Castles of Burgundy, which is a dice rolling, activating your actions based on your dice rolls. Sometimes you just get a crap roll and you can't do anything except get some workers that mitigate them. But now there's so many newer Euro games, if you will, that have 50 different ways to mitigate your dice. Oh, you can get a worker that will allow you to increase the value of it, up or down one. Oh, but there's also these reroll tokens. You can re-roll your tokens. Oh, well, there's also this mechanic where you can turn 3 dice in and then turn one of them into whatever value you want. It's like, how much do we really need to mitigate all of the luck inside of a game? And I think that's where that's coming from.
Have either of you guys ever played any Warhammer ever in your life? Have you guys either of you ever played Warhammer?
Quest.
Okay. So in OG Warhammer, before Age of Sigmar, the fantasy version of Warhammer, okay?
Yeah.
You would roll your dice, you rolled a hit, and then you rolled a wound. Okay. And every once in a while, you might have like a one-time use thing, which would give you a reroll. And I loved it. It was hard as hell. You got screwed by rolls all the time. I had buddies that were screwed by rolls all the time. You know, it's like D&D. You bring your good dice because these roll good for me, you know?
Yeah.
Then I had buddies start to get into Warhammer 40K. And I was out almost immediately because it's like, well, I rolled, but I've got this kind of blaster, so it gives me rerolls. And then it was like reroll. And it's like, come on, dude, you either hit or you don't. Like, okay, you know, like, I don't want to sit here for 20 minutes and watch you roll dice. Like, let's go. Like, I enjoyed the strategy. You hit or you miss. It's luck. It's what it is. You know, you put good armor. That's your mitigation. You know what I mean? You build your armies in certain ways to mitigate it. I'm harder to hit. I'm harder to wound.
I think it's important that a game system have purity. And I think the number of ways that you can pull that purity apart or modify that purity has to have a limit. And it's like you said, and Mike said too, it gets to the point where you've muddied the system to the point there's no purity left.
Yeah.
You know, it's just overly busy. You know, it's too much math, if you will. It's just too much.
You know, but like, I think my Warhammer experiences translate over to my board game experiences with that, you know, I mean, and same thing with D&D. I can't tell you how many D&D campaigns, you know, or other role-playing game campaigns that we have played where it's like, well, I'm going to go for it. And the DM looks at you and goes, roll it.
Yeah,
you know, you can try. Right. But how much fun is it if it's like, well, I rolled and I missed, but I've got 7 more rerolls. So hold on a minute. You know, it's like, come on, dude. Like, that's not cool. That's just boring.
I know some mitigation is necessary, but when you get to a point where you can just load up mitigation tactics and really produce any result you want, why roll dice anymore? Like, what's the point of even using them if you can produce any result you want on any given roll?
Mike, the best example of a game with dice mitigation, and I love the way they do it, and I know you're going to agree with me, role player, right? Role player.
That's been on my list for a long time.
Oh my God. So you roll these dice, but they give you where you assign it allows you to do all these different things. And so instead of it being mitigation, it's more like it creates these combos that you can do to set up your board in the right way. So it's technically dice mitigation, but it doesn't feel like it because you still have to.
You got to resolve it.
You got to resolve it. You got to set up these chain reactions. You know, it's like got this engine building kind of thing to it. And it's like,
have you played that one, Mike?
Oh,
I love Role Player. Yeah,
I knew Mike would love it. I picked that one for him.
Yeah, it's not just like, it's kind of like you're slotting these dice into, you know, your character. You're building out their attributes. You slot them in, you get an action. Well, you have to pre-plan that. You got to set up, okay, I really needed this 3 here, so let me put this one here, which allows me to switch to dice's location. Is kind of, you're pre-planning the mitigation that game offers.
Or you flip your die, you know, to the opposite face, right? Like you can rotate your die all the way over, you know, things like that. But it's interesting because you can set up these really cool combos. It feels good without feeling cheap, you know, like you said, it keeps the game pure. The game still feels very pure, but
yeah, I don't know. Just sometimes when you have a game that gives you like 15 reroll tokens, it's like, why are we using dice anymore?
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay if luck is not always in your favor. That's part of the
shit happens.
It's okay to fail sometimes. Like,
That's right. Life is
like
a
we've got
contact
so
sport.
much
So should your gaming.
yeah, we've got so much mitigation in some of these games. It's like there's no option to fail for. Well,
Yep.
why are we using dice?
Well, if you want to go just off of real life examples, I have learned more from my many, 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 many failures than I have ever learned from any of my successes.
Me too.
Honestly, you know, I'm not saying I want to fail anymore because I'm tired of it, but like, you know, but the thing is you learn from it. You grow, you adapt, you evolve, you know, and all that stuff.
That's what good games should do for us.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Come on, give us another one. You got another one, Mike?
I was trying to think of one as we were kind of fading off of this topic here.
You're good. Hey, so Jeff, while Mike's looking and thinking, just give me an example. What's one of your all-time favorite games?
Yeah, there we
go. All-time favorite games.
Yeah.
I really like what they've done. Let's see. Man, I've got so many. All-time favorite games. There's so many. I mean,
and then Mike, I got a topic once Jeff gives us the answer, because I remember one that Wayne asked earlier. So go for it, Jeff.
Dark Light was a great dungeon crawl. It was challenging, simple, but it also had a lot of nuance to it. I thought that was a great game.
Mm-hmm.
What was that one? I played a lot of Milton Bradley Master Series. I really liked. I went through a phase where I loved dice chuckers, and I loved Axis and Allies. I played Shogun like crazy. I loved Shogun. I liked Broadsides and Boarding Parties. I liked Conquest of the Empire. I liked Fortress America was a little quirky.
I never got into that one, but
the world rushed in to take over America, and then America pushes back, and the game always tends to play that way. So that one was probably one of my least favorites of that series, but I really liked that. Of course, I liked a lot of games that are laughed at today. You know, I mean, I liked Hero Quest. I think it has a really nice, simple combat mechanic.
Good bones.
So, you know, I mean, too many bones?
No, I said Hero Quest has good bones. I think it has really good bones.
Oh, I thought you said too many bones. Yeah, no, Hero Quest has good bones, and you know, nowadays they call it an entry game, you know, or a gateway game, whatever. Right. And I think rightly so. I think rightly so. Enough things have happened in that particular genre that it deserves that. And you know, I would say for me, one of the goals of Brahod is to create a game that kind of delivers on the promise of what an adult version of Hero Quest would have looked like, a little more adult. Because I think while we have a lot more richness to our game, I don't think the complexity level of ours is more than double what Hero Quest is.
Yeah, that's maybe a low bar.
Maybe triple. But you know, again, accessibility. I want the combat fast, fun, and consequential at the cost of some realism and tactical depth. Fine.
Yeah,
this is not that game.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love that. I think that's super important. Right? It's not that game. That's it.
I think Vox Machina, another good game. And one that's often overlooked but has some really nice mechanics is Deep Madness by Dimension Games.
Oh, I got to play that one time. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think Deep Madness is good. I'm excited for the All In for Dawn of Madness, which is coming out. Still waiting on that. I don't know. I mean, I'm niche-y, you know. I mean, I love adventure games. I love co-op. I love dungeon crawls. I love. I mean, I kind of liked Greenbrier games. Folklore was kind of fun.
Oh, I didn't play Folklore, but yeah.
Yeah. Boy.
No, you're good, man. That's what I needed. That's what I wanted to know. I think sometimes just kind of learning what kind of games other people
ISS
like.
Vanguard, love it. Unsettled, love it. Trying to think of stuff. Of course, if you do Outer Rim, if you go Star Wars, Outer Rim with the expansion is really fun. Unfinished Business, the expansion.
Really need to play that one.
So Wayne wants to know, overproduced but limited replay in games. So if you got a game that's like top notch, really, really, really good production value, but you're only going to get to play it once, maybe twice, is that worth it? Is it, because that's kind of a trend, right?
It is. Well, look at Storm Thunder. There's a perfect example of that. It's a game with tons of cool minis, great art, probably a little overproduced, and it is a rail game that's very well, maybe not quite a rail game, but it's very curated, and it's you play characters in a story. You're playing part of the story. I think my argument would be if the story is good enough, then why not? Maybe you sell it when you're done and you get some of that money back.
Sure.
You're not stuck with a game that you've taken good care of and you've kept all the pieces for.
I will say the counter argument to that is Kingdom Death Monster. You're kind of stuck with that. You're kind of stuck with Kingdom Death.
Because you tear it up.
Well, because you assemble the minis. You're assembling the minis, and then you're gonna, it's. I don't know. I've never been one to tear up cards in any of my legacy games. I like to be able to have the option to reset because I'm a collector, man.
They're really only designed to play once.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of games that are legacy only. What I do love, and I think we're going to see this as a trend, guys, to stay on topic. I think we're going to see more games that have a separate legacy channel to them so that you have this very replayable, well-designed machine that runs and replays well, but then maybe in an expansion, you offer a legacy channel that you play through once. I think we're going to see more of that.
Yeah. So, I could dig that quite a bit, to be honest, because I would love the aspect of like when we play these Descent games and stuff like that, for example, just to go back to that one, because that's an easy one to go back to.
Sure.
I love the idea of leveling up the character, right? Now in Descent, you're not really like increasing your stats. You're just finding gear, and some stuff like that. But as an old school Final Fantasy player, stuff like that, I used to play a lot of Dragon Warrior, things like, on Nintendo. I always wanted to level up my character, beef up my stats. To play, I would love to play like a legacy deck builder where my deck just keeps getting better and better and better and better. Because my knock on like the Harry Potter deck building game, Battle for Hogwarts, right? You reset your deck every chapter, so you're not carrying anything over, and that's such a bummer because that's a difficult enough co-op. And then you're like, I've got all this stuff, I've got it humming the way I want. I win, and now that whole deck is gone.
Yep, over.
And I'm now just back with my starter cards going up against somebody that's even more ramped up, and more difficult.
Yeah, that's just, that would make you want to not play it again.
Right.
So go ahead.
Tim, isn't that what the Clank legacy game does?
I haven't played it yet. I've got it. I haven't played it. I'm really hoping. I've got really high hopes. And I will tell you, so like Aeon Zen Legacy kind of does this a little bit. My problem is that Aeon Zen Legacy, for me, the lore is so bad. Like, it's just badly written, in my opinion. I'm a snob, and sometimes
you're kind of a writer at heart, so
sometimes you get stuff and you're just like, this feels like just cheap fanfic. I already know, like, the way they pose the story. I kind of already know, like, I just see it coming. It's not exciting or interesting. The twists aren't there. But it looks like, so he asked, does it also reset the decks? And Bob says yes. So, that'll be disappointing. But
so what persists? Just changes on the board? Oh.
Oh, Hanzo wants to know if we have a Christmas list suggestion video. Gosh, I guess we need to do that next week, Mike.
I mean, we still have next Wednesday.
Yeah, we do. It'll be cutting it close, but we do. Oh, but you do get to upgrade some cards. So, but yeah, for me, there's like this, I don't know. I want to level my stuff up, like but I also want to have the replayability. I want both. I want my cake and I want to eat it too. I want to be able to reset because again, if you talk about like Final Fantasy, I played it through this way. I want to reset the game. Now I want to play it through and I want to try a divergent path, right? I want to try something else.
But imagine, because after we get done with Brotherhood, our next title is a sci-fi title, and we're thinking about having these basically missions that are campaigns, but you can only do them once. Basically, you're going to go through it once, and it's only going to be a small part of the game. I mean, the core of the game is still there and has all the replayability, but these little legacy packets that you can purchase aren't.
Oh, right.
Think about that approach.
Yeah,
I think
that's
there might
interesting.
Be a segment of the players that like it, and the people that don't like legacy stuff or stuff that you do once and then it reset. You can't reset it. Then maybe some people wouldn't buy it. But I just like the idea of having a game that has a lot of replayability, like you guys said, but then a legacy, a channel that you can content in that lets you do. It's like you might get something extremely cool going, doing this packet. But it's just a one-shot thing,
Well, there's so many games though that give you the opportunity now to save your game. You know what I mean? You just you keep all these cards together over here in this separate little section of the box. That's everybody's little things. Here's the thing, and you just open back up to where you are. Whether in the campaign book, here we go. Here's what we're doing. But at the same time, you could take all those cards and throw them back into the decks you got them out of, right? All those extra things. And so again, you could reset because, hey, I'm done with this game. I played it. Either A, it didn't land with my group, or I played this game for 1,000 hours. Nobody will play this game with me anymore. I'm done with it. Yep. Jimmy down the street wants it. I can give it to him. I can sell it to him, whatever.
And he can enjoy it. Yeah.
And he can enjoy it. Here you go. Reset. There you go. I know I'm asking for my cake and eating it too, but at the same time, I think that now we have gotten to a point with games, you can realistically kind of do both. I really do. I've seen other games do it. I think you can reset.
It's just a matter of the right writing teams and enough good content to be able to do both.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, man, as far as like high dollar value and replayability and no replayability, it's got to be a lifestyle game. I mean, you're hitting a niche gamer there, right? It's not going to be that one that applies to all these different categories: 6 players, 7 players, 1 player, 2 players. No. It's like if somebody designs a solo only game, it's just like that, right? It's only for those people. And you got to know your market. You got to know you've got to drum up enough interest around those kind of people. And that's it, but I don't know. That's my opinion. Mike, you got any thoughts?
Sorry, I was reading something.
Even Fat Eric. Fat Eric will come over and play with you for 1,000 hours.
Being Fat Eric over here.
The problem is Sloppy Carl comes over with them, and then you got to sleep all your stuff.
No, Carl.
I will say, so confession, and I kind of told you this before you came on tonight, that I really haven't played a whole lot of. I've played no RPGs. I've not played any D&D. I've played very few story-driven games. And really the only campaign game I've played too, Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion, and Pandemic Legacy. And I didn't really particularly enjoy Pandemic Legacy. And part of it was because I just kind of felt like Pandemic is just an okay game to me. And so it's like, okay, Pandemic is just a middling game for you. Legacy didn't do anything that won me over. It's like, okay, I'm still just playing Pandemic, just with a few modifiers each time.
Right.
And so I've played Jaws of the Lion. I didn't really get to finish it. And I think part of it is the commitment and not having steady groups for a while to get those kind of games to the table.
So true.
So here I am with a group willing to play that kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, if one of these guys has these games, like call me up. If I'm available, I'll show up and I'll play it. Let's do it. No questions asked. I'll play anything. But I really like the idea of one-shots where I can just kind of experience the system, not a whole lot of extra overhead of having to worry about how this is going to affect the next play. And so just the idea of I can get in, I can experience the game, I can see what the mechanics are all about, I can see if this is a thing that I want to play multiple times over and over, that really appeals to me. So definitely something I'm interested in. Just the simple fact that I learned that there's such a thing as a D&D one-shot. I didn't even know that existed until I heard some conversations about that. And so, yeah, I'm totally in on trying that and then going, okay, this is cool. Let's dig deeper. So I guess to me, it's sort of like a try it before you dive in sort of thing.
One of the things that we do with our system that we think will help give it staying power is that, you know, if you've got a campaign going and your friends are away for a couple weeks, your ability to come out of campaign mode and just play it solo procedurally, not even doing any quests, just head out from one village to another or get on a boat and go over to one of the other main land masses just to dink around and have fun is very doable in our system. So those things, what we do is we prevent you from getting hero advancements from both modes of play, right? So if you're questing and campaigning, you have to get your advancements from those modes. If you don't want to do quests and you want to just play the game, the game world more sandboxy, then you're going to have to do those commission tiers for the villagers, and you're going to have to do what they need to help them. And then you can get advancements. I like that. I think that's one of the things that people are going to enjoy about our system is the versatility of going in and out of modes, you know, without screwing things up. I hope. We'll see.
No, yeah, no, that's what I want. I mean, that's the kind of thing I want. I think that's the fun thing about doing one shots is it's like, oh, you thought that was cool. Well, just wait until you do that one shot, but then you get to do more. Like, oh, that badass sword you found at the end of the one shot, that treasure. Well, now you get to spend that treasure. You know, you get to wield that sword, you know, going into the next thing. It's like, hell yeah, I'm ready. Let's go. You know, that's that hook, right? Pulls you in.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, the problem is, I think, like Wayne was saying, those expensive games with no replay value, it has to be a lifestyle game. Obviously, it has to be a game like Kingdom Death Monster, where it's hours and hours and hours of gameplay, you know, immersive gameplay. You know, it's gotta be
not just flat repetitive hours, but really rich gaming.
Really rich gaming, and in my opinion, it needs to be challenging. It needs to be immersive. All of those things.
The writing was good,
and it helps a lot.
That's the thing for us is we see so much good writing in the RPG space. There's so much cool writing in the RPG space. Where it hasn't really found its niche yet is in these story-driven board games. The writing tends to fall flat. And we really want to elevate the writing. And that's why I paid Sean Dressler so many tens of thousands of dollars to write for us, because he's an epic fantasy writer.
Right.
He's written over 30 novels. And so in order to elevate the writing, it takes bucks to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. You know? Unless you can do it yourself, right?
I wish I could.
That's the thing, man. That's the thing. Is it's tough. It's really tough. And again, so kind of back to what I was saying earlier is like when a game, and I'm probably more forgiving of a game for having bad art than I am having a bad story, right? Because like a story driven game for me, well, the point of it is that it's story driven. Okay.
Yeah.
Scythe is a good game, whether the art blows you out of your shoes or not, right?
Because
It's
the
a
story's strong.
but Scythe is a well-designed, interesting game, right?
Yep.
It's the art transports you into this place, right? And it adds that level of immersion to it.
Yep.
But that's a good game. But
Yep.
if I'm playing, but that's not a story-driven game necessarily. I guess those event cards can kind of be a little bit like surface level, kind of fun, this, that, or that, right? But if I'm playing a campaign style game, the story can't suck. It cannot. It is crucial.
No, and hopefully it's not like you said too. You talk about like I knew what was going to happen like 5 quests before it happened.
Yeah,
it needs to have some really big plot points that shock you.
Yeah,
make you feel like you're in a quality novel, not just some
yeah
story.
And I'm a Game of Thrones fan, and I like books where they're not afraid to kill people off. You know what I mean? One of my favorite things about those books is so many times in a Game of Thrones, especially the first couple books, where you're like, well, if that happens, that would be like the worst thing that could possibly happen. There's no way in what they just killed that. You know what I mean? Oh, it just happened.
I love it. Great. What a great story. Woo.
And it just wrenches your heart, like you're so involved, you get worked up over it. Like,
I got so mad at the Red Wedding. I swore off the show for a couple weeks because I was so mad.
Right. I love that stuff, man. But that's the thing is it got an emotional reaction out of you. And not just because you're like, oh, well, this was just poorly written drivel. No, it pissed you off because there were characters that you're invested in and stuff is happening to them. And so
my issue with that show is the pacing. And it's like season 1 felt pretty good and it was pretty consistent from episode 1 to the final episode. And then season 2 starts and it is incredibly slow. And it remains incredibly slow until the season finale in the Red Wedding. It's like there was a little bit of build up to that. And then that happens. You're like, holy crap. Then you're like, I really waited 2 months. I went to watch 10 episodes to get to that. I actually gave up on I gave up on the Game of Thrones in the middle of season 2 because the pacing was terrible in that season. I came back and I rewatched the entire series, but the pacing in that whole series really frustrated me.
Well, then they go the wrong way with the last season where they totally just jack everything because they rush.
Oh yeah, then everything is great, and then the last couple episodes, you're like, wow, you just unraveled everything I was watching this for.
What a bunch of junk. And Wayne's right. At this rate, they'll never get those books out. They'll probably have to be released posthumously after Martin passes away. But that's all right. I have gotten some novels that I absolutely love out of there, and if they're unfinished, that's fine. We could come up with our own own endings that will be better than the TV series ended. I don't care who's writing it. But yeah, I mean that's the thing is I don't necessarily need to be weeping at the end of a campaign of a board game that I'm playing, because something happened. But I do actually want to have some investment in the story, and like you said, Jeff, you want some plot twists, you want some surprises,
Yep. Our story arc is based on layer upon layer of lies, and so the heroes have to uncover truths that are as far from what they believe at the beginning as possible, and it really makes for satisfying kind of layers to peel back as they grow as heroes. So we think it'll be exciting, and it sure doesn't get any easier as you progress through the story arc. It gets darker and harder, and
I just like I like it. Like I like challenging. I like challenging games. I like stories that challenge you. You know what I mean? I just like themes that challenge you. I just like I mean, yeah, there's something to be said for sometimes I just want popcorn and I want to shut my brain off, but then there's times because like some of my favorite role-playing game campaigns, I just remember the turmoil, the emotional turmoil, the very difficult decisions, and you don't know if it's the right decision. You talk about in Verhode where you can run, right? You can run. Yeah. I can tell you how many times we've been playing any role-playing game, whether it was Vampire,
you can't run.
Deadlands. It's like, well, you can't run, or sometimes you're like, the DM is just dropping all these hints. Dude, you guys should run from this. And, and it's like,
should we run?
Should we run? I think we should fight. I think we can take it. Well, roll for it. Well, he just dropped. I'm out of here.
Yeah, many a party wipe has occurred from that kind of attitude.
Yeah.
Complete party wipe. Just everybody dead.
TPK, right? Total player kill.
Total player kill.
But I don't know, man. I just, if it's gonna be a lifestyle game, it's gotta be, it's gotta be consistent. It's gotta be strong. It's gotta be really strong, and to commit to a legacy style game. A campaign-driven game, especially something which, nothing against Clank Legacy. I see Clank Legacy being a lot lighter fare. It's cheeky. The plot twist might be like some casual betrayals, or maybe we're not doing what we thought we were doing, but it's not going to be like, oh, we're retelling. Because we always call our old D&D stories or old role-playing game stories cardboard war stories, right? We got these cardboard war stories. Oh, I remember back when, we did this and then that happened. And, you think we were sitting at a VFW, buying beers for each other. But, those kind of like that retelling of those tales, right? And those adventures, like that's what's so great about it. I mean, I don't know. So that it's a very fine line. It's very fickle. If it's going to be a very high price point with low replayability, like it's got to be freaking epic. It's just got to be a home run, and that's really hard to do.
It is hard to do.
I think in a way I'm picky about my storytelling because I get bored very easily, and so if you can't suck me in very quickly with some kind of hook, I'm like, what am I going to invest all this time for?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, we've been going for 3.5 hours almost.
We're not scared, are we?
We ain't scared. We ain't scared. Do you have anything else you want to cover? I don't want to. I want to be respectful of your time, Jeff. I don't want to keep you all all night. I know it's not as late for you as it is for us being out in Montana, but.
I mean, I feel like we got pretty good coverage on at least from my perspective, on some of the trends that we're seeing. And I don't want anything I said tonight to be misconstrued as disrespectful of other businesses or designers.
Not at all.
Like when I talked about Stars of Arcarius, I bought their all in. I bought their new stuff. And
look what I have right here.
Yeah, I love Mythic games. I love Leo. I love Darkest Dungeon board game. I backed the all in. I'm waiting on wave 2. I paid extra money for more shipping. I'm just a gamer at heart. I love games.
I think, Jeff, we came at a lot of this. We come at this as consumers.
Yeah,
right. This isn't like, yeah. Please. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just feel like that's very important. We come at it as consumers.
That's exactly right. It's like, there's games I played that I haven't liked, but I won't mention them here. You know what I mean? It's just, but yeah, I mean, I'm excited to be part of this industry. I will tell you that it's been extremely kind to me in the few years I've had the opportunity to be part of it. It started with Creative Game Studios, Rick Bach and Marcio Assis, which are really, really nice guys. They welcomed me in. They pointed me in the right direction. And, people like Andrew Lowen of Next Level Web, Jamie Jolly from Shadowborn Games. I had the opportunity to learn everything I know about setting up a convention booth from him, and it's an industry that I really love. It's definitely not a money-making scheme for me.
No.
I'll be excited to move from Vrahod, though, to our next title, because Vrahod for me is so close to my heart. It's so much a part of my life and has been since about age 18 that I haven't been able to collab with other designers as much as I would have liked, because I was so fearful that the game would not maintain the purity of the rule set that I hoped it would have. And while I love it, I have to admit, being a designer of a game system in a world like this that's so much me, it's so much about Jeff Irving, that it's been pretty lonely. And so the sci-fi title is more collaborative, I'll be able to work with more designers, more writers. And so I just have to get through this last push. And I just hope that people enjoy exploring that world as much as I've had having it in my head for over 30 years.
Yeah.
I just want to say again, I reiterated the point, because these are not typically the style of games I go after, but I'm very interested in playing Vrahod. There's a lot of ideas here that sound really fascinating to me.
Yeah, I think the dashboards are something that you're going to like, Mike, because the dashboards do all the bookkeeping for you. Our dashboards handle more data points than any other game that I'm aware of. And instead of if you can wrap your head around the functions of the dashboard, then the game is very simple. It does all the heavy lifting for you. And I think you're going to like that. I think for someone like you, it will keep you from getting bored, because you'll be able to be more social with it and be in the action, as opposed to looking in rule books and worrying about complex rules. And I think you'll love the challenge level, the fact that it's so damn hard. It's a hard game.
Yeah. You can't, I think that's another thing about really challenging games is you can't look away. You're so, it forces me to zone in, really, okay, really start looking at all the angles and seeing everything. So
it makes co-op play so much more satisfying when no single person at the table would survive alone. I love that. I love that concept, that if it's co-op, it damn near needs to have has to have asymmetry in those builds so that they complement each other. And we really work hard at that. Yeah.
No, I'm excited for it, man. I've been excited for 6 months. When I heard about it 6 months ago at Origins, and nothing is tempered that excitement. Everything has just made it more interesting. And I will also say that, one of the great things about this hobby is it's kind of like what you were saying. You just get to know other people in it. And there's so many fantastic people in this hobby. And you meet such cool and interesting people, and everybody from all these different walks of life and all their different stories and everything, and you're one of those people, man. It's been awesome it's been awesome to be able to get to know you and talk to you, and hang out with you. And I love that it means a lot to me that you come on the show and you just feel comfortable and you can be honest, and, we can have these conversations, because I don't know, man, for me, our show, all of our stuff we do is all just, we're just excited about board games. We're excited to talk about them. And I just want people to feel comfortable. Like this whole idea, the whole idea behind all of this is just us hanging out, we're having a beverage, and we're just BSing, right? And I really appreciate you.
The honor is definitely all mine. I love this industry because I'm a fanboy. And I mean, if I see Isaac Childress at a convention, by golly, I'm going to say, hey, do you mind taking a picture with me?
Right.
And I've had my picture taken with some of the best designers in the industry. And I value those, those pictures aren't going anywhere, but you can't, there's a lot of industries where the elites of the industry are so removed from the fans of like us.
Yeah.
That you don't get to experience them. And if you do, it's from 300 yards away on a stage. And to be able to walk up to someone like, Brandon Leavitt from Dimension Games and shake his hand and say, hey, I'm excited about Dawn of Madness. Can't wait. And he's a top tier designer.
Right.
and I got to get my picture taken with him. It's so cool. I love that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, right? Like the pinnacle of my YouTube career has been getting to sit next to Martin Wallace and talk to Martin Wallace, for an hour. And, like I was excited about it, pumped up, but guess what? That dude just is a board gamer. You know what I mean? He's just like us. He was cool as hell. He was wonderful. You know what I mean? Generous with his time.
I got one for you. Guess who was my booth neighbor at the very first con I went to? Genghis Khan in Aurora, Colorado. My next door neighbor at the next booth was Luke Gygax.
Whoa.
and his daughter Miriam.
Wow.
And I'm talking to Luke Gygax like he's my neighbor.
Right.
I mean, this is a cool flipping industry.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really everybody that you try to talk to is always super approachable too. That's the other amazing thing about it. It's a very tight-knit community.
And that's the crazy thing. I'm gonna highlight Portland Gamecraft just because this is Evan Halbert. He designed a game that our group loves, After the Empire. He co-designed it. We should give Ryan credit to.
Yeah.
But like we had the opportunity to sort of meet Evan, and we were so excited to meet him. And now he's just like one of our buddies. You know what I mean? We hung out with him. He's just a great dude. I got so many examples of this. Jim Cole, he designed a game that had a good Kickstarter. Turns out I knew that dude's artwork from role-playing games in the 90s. You know what I mean? Because he's an artist. Like that's a friend now. We just got to bond over board game. Now I got this automatic icebreaker because I can go up to anybody and go, hey, I got a show. Do you want to come on? Worst thing they do is say no. Right.
Yeah.
So I've got a great in. Like I could just walk up to anybody that I admire and be like, hey, you want to come on the show? I literally yelled at Eric Lang as he walked by our booth. And he then committed to coming on, the next day to do our show. Like, it's just like, there's so many wonderful people. It's awesome. I love it. Yep. I really do. We're really lucky to be able to be in this hobby. I wish it made everybody in this hobby millions of dollars. It'd be so much nicer.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be nice if it was a little more lucrative, but that's okay.
But obviously we all here because we're passionate about it. We love it.
Absolutely.
You stay for the people, you start because of the experiences and you can stay for the people.
Yep. Jeff, I dropped links to basically everything I could find on you, but where
Thanks, Mike.
Where do I get a Discord invite link?
Ooh.
Let me give that to you.
Excellent.
Let's see here.
I'll put that in here as well. And let me ask you this: are you in our Discord?
I don't think I'm on your Discord.
Okay.
No.
Oh, okay. Rude. No,
I wasn't sure. And no.
I'm just messing with
this was also a curiosity question because I'm always trying to match people with their real names and Discord names and YouTube names, and those are not always one and the same.
That's why I just go Timbot everything. Everything's Timbot. It's always the same.
What email do you want me to send that to, Mike? What for the Discord?
You can put it in that Facebook Messenger we have, and I'll just copy and paste into
I'll do that
thread here.
Okay.
I'll make sure I drop that before.
Let me get there.
You're good. But yeah, that was the only other thing I didn't have, and I just happen to really enjoy Discord. So you'll catch me in there.
Our Discord is new, so it's not super active, but we do use Discord a lot when we play our tabletop simulator, which we have a TTS as well.
There we go. All right. So you mean we can play it before?
Yeah, you can play it now. Well, what you would be playing now would be the core box of the 4-game series, not the entry product.
Okay.
Because the entry product is straight. It's a campaign game where the TTS is basically allowing you to play procedurally, like if you were going to solo play and just let the cards take you. It's going to be that sort of thing. So yeah, the three of us could get on and play TTS, and I would basically just probably give you a story hook, and then we would just choose what kind of region we wanted to explore in, that kind of thing.
Okay.
All right, I just joined your Discord.
Yeah, good. Just to give kudos to the guy that designed it. Ken Cunningham is the designer of our tabletop simulator, and Tim was with the folks from Succubus Publishing that did Madara. He also did the Madara tabletop simulator, so he comes from very good TTS pedigree. And our tabletop simulator is pretty nice.
Nice, right on.
Because of Ken, I can brag because it's Ken.
Hey, Andrew, thank you so much for watching, dude. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate your insights too.
Definitely.
That's a really smart guy, knows a lot of stuff.
Heck yeah.
So
yeah, it's always nice when we can have a designer on and then also have half a dozen of them in our chat. With, great feedback to add.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what excited to see what other designers think too, with regard to our choice to use plain speak and verbiage as opposed to a lot of iconography. It's something that, like I said, playtesting wise, it playtests fine, but it hasn't really met the litmus test of what other designers think yet. So I'd love to hear some feedback on that eventually, which I'm sure I will. Probably in a standing review.
Right. I mean, I honestly, I think it's just going to depend on your execution of it. Yeah. Honestly, if that's the way you're going, you got to commit to it. You got to nail it. And that's it. But it's the same if you do iconography. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
You got to commit to it. You got to nail it.
Adequate player aids.
Yeah. And I thought I get Evan's comment about being dyslexic, and that kind of maybe slowing him down a little bit. But I also, my gut reaction was, well, language independence, because I know that so many games go to the iconography for the language independence aspect, right? But again, your game is going to be for certain markets, in certain ways. And if you're prepared and you're interested in translating it and having it go international, that's a whole different animal. And I'm sure you've already thought of that.
Well, we've got a 5-year deal with Mob Vanguard to get localization into European languages. And we have to be careful with white text. You have to use black text, single color black text on a light colored background, so that it's just a one plate change to go to a different language. That's an important part of the design process if you want to make localization easier. We chose to focus on making the game we want for this first iteration, knowing we're going to have more work to localize it.
Oh, sure. But yeah, Evan, you're right. You're using your best judgment for your vision, your game, and your audience, and it's the correct choice. And at the end of the day, man, this is your baby. You're putting it out. Like you said, it needs to be pure. It needs to be yours. If you wanted to compromise, you could have sold out, and been running around pitching this to other companies and, brought in other devs and, and all that stuff. That's not what this is.
I love the idea of working with other designers in the future. This just wasn't the IP to do it.
Right.
It's too personal. It's too personal.
That's the thing, man. That's the thing. Yeah. No, you got your baby.
It's not an ego thing at all, because I'm not as experienced as other designers in many cases. It's just, I know how I want this world to play. And that would make other designers trying to collaborate with me feel like I just wasn't being flexible enough.
Right.
And I am flexible, and I love team efforts. I love collaborating. As soon as I get through this one, this sci-fi one, I can't wait to bring on another designer or two. I can't wait.
Right. Well,
yes,
I can tell you, even with show stuff, and Mike understands this too, is sometimes there's just stuff I want a certain way. Like, it's my vision. It's my idea. I want it this way. And there's other times where I throw it up to all the other guys on the show. I'm like, hey man, what do you guys think about this? And so, and it just is what it is, right? We're passionate about the things we're passionate about, and but it's been awesome having you on the show. I really do appreciate this, Jeff.
Sure.
we kind of threw this together. I don't want to say last minute, but like we're trying to get you in before Christmas.
Oh, I'm so thankful and grateful for the opportunity to get to chat with you fellas. And Tim, whenever I've talked to you in the past, it's always just like hanging out with a friend. So it's really, really nice. And Mike, great to get to speak with you as well.
You too, Jeff. For sure. We'll have many more discussions about your game for sure.
And this ain't the last time, man. We're going to pester you to be on again. I love these kind of talks and that's the beauty of it. Hopefully we value these relationships, these friends, because that's what they are for us. They're friendships. We absolutely. I value and I cherish them, and it's really important to me. So I'm really glad you had a nice time. And
I had a great time.
Want to come back on. So, but Mike, you got anything else?
Do you guys ever do sponsorships?
We've talked about it. We're
sponsor you for so long. Do you ever do that? Do you ever entertain that idea?
We have definitely entertained that idea. I don't know. I think we might have dabbled with one sponsorship, but I don't know that I understood all the ins and outs of it, or that it got much deeper than surface level. But maybe we'll have a conversation, Jeff.
All right.
But yeah, man, this has been awesome. Mike, you got anything else you want to hit before we go?
No, it's been awesome. Jeff, one last time, why don't you give the folks at home an idea of exactly when you think Vrahode will hit crowdfunding?
We're definitely going to be launching on Kickstarter October 24. We're probably going to have the game ready to launch before that, which is unusual, I know, because a lot of companies wait to have their, they just put enough together to launch. No, we're going to have a complete product before launch. And so 10/24 right now is the firm date. If it goes anywhere, it might move forward slightly, but only if we have a good reason to do so.
Oh, sure.
And then every 6 months after that, 6 months after the initial launch will be the launch of the big core box, which will be a little bit pricey, and the first Harbinger set. So that will be laterally compatible with the core box. But if you don't want to play Vrahode, you'll be able to steal the Harbinger set and go play it in whatever system that you would like. And then the Kickstarter after that, if things go well with the core box launch, the next Kickstarter will have expansion 1, 2, and 3 for the Vrahode game system, and Harbinger set 2, 3, and 4. So we're going to try, if we have enough success, we're going to try to get all 9 products out in 3 launches. If it's not huge, if we don't do super well, then we'll probably do each expansion and each Harbinger set individually as a launch. But each time the products from the prior launches will come back and still be available. So
that's
the
nice.
the entry point product will always be available. The core box will move forward and be available when the expansions launch, and so on.
Right.
So there you go.
Well, it sounds great. I can't wait to see it, man. We're excited. We're very excited about it.
Well, thank you so much. And I can't wait to blow you guys some crap when you post this.
Hell yeah. I will also will say, anybody's got any questions about Vrahode, the game system, anything like that, Jeff is very accessible. Sorry, Jeff, I'm throwing you out there. Jeff's very accessible. Find him, hit him up on any of the socials, Weathervane Games, hit him up on Discord. Trust me, his aim is to present his game to you. He's not hiding anything. So any questions you got, anything you want to dig into, hit him up. He'll lay it all out for you.
I sure will.
So just, I would say if any of that sounds interesting, do yourself a favor and give it a look. The artwork alone would have brought me in had I not known you or met you. I'd have walked by him and like, damn, look at that.
Well, just wait. Like I said, the websites, we're getting ready to redo all of them. And I'm really excited about what those are going to feature. It's really going to make people understand the product line. Right now, it's a hodgepodge and nothing matches. And I mean, it looks interesting, but it needs to be done way better. And we're getting there. So
sure. And you're not like, it's not like you're launching tomorrow, so you got some time.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, this has been awesome. I really appreciate it. I'm excited. I love doing our Whiskey Wednesdays. Thank you everybody for watching. We had 1 million comments tonight. I love it. I thought the feedback was great.
Very good.
Everybody like and subscribe, do all those things. Find us on Discord, find Jeff on Discord. Get over on our Discord and give Mike a hard time for being such a cheap ass and not going all in on games.
I'm used to it.
I know.
Thanks, guys.
But anyways, for the board game rundown, I've been Tim.
I was Mike.
And I was Jeff, and I'm still Jeff.
You're still Jeff. Right on, guys. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.